at YouTube. We are live. Everybody, welcome back to Knuckles Family and Friend podcast. We're just doing this pop culture where it's anime, gaming, comics. And today we have another great show coming up for you guys. As today we're going to be talking about X-Men 97 Season 2. We're going to give over our thoughts. And as always, I have another all-star lineup. Now I got my guy Anthony. He's been on the show many times, but the last time we were on the show was almost a year ago when we were talking about Demon Slayer. So that was almost a year ago, which was, by the way, y'all not seen the Infinity Castle, y'all need to go see that movie. It's a great movie, so I highly recommend that. But we have two new guests on the show. And anytime I have two guests on the show, I talk about how we met, and I also want to say, like, what's your origin story, how you guys, came to be, a nerd at our age and everything, because there's not many of us old nerds out there right now. So yes, we're still OGs in the game right now. So I love us right now. But I love it. I have my guy Chris, known this guy since college. I tell this guy all the time, but like Chris was very smart. He just never went to class. I'm like, Chris, hey, you missed this, man. Blah, 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 blah. Yo, Chris is a very smart guy, but yeah, we met each other at college. I don't know when I found out that you were a nerd. I can't remember, but I remember when there was a con at Wizard World, I saw your side con. So I'm like, Chris, what are you doing over here right there, man?
I was say, yeah, I don't remember when it was, and I think our mutual friend was like, "Oh, hey, you were at this convention, and Knuckles was there too. Did you happen to cross paths?" I'm like, "How were we at this giant convention and couldn't have possibly crossed paths?" But I think because conventions, like many shows, everybody's dialed up with makeup, prosthetics, all that stuff that maybe we could have just walked right by each other and didn't recognize.
Maybe, yeah. But how did you become like a nerd? Like, what got you to, become a nerd? Was it like comics, anime, gaming? So what got you to be the nerd that you are right now?
It was less comics, full disclosure. It was more so games and TV media. Like, always have been an X-Men fan. I had it on Sega. I will play it in the arcade. Obviously, I love our Goddess Storm. For many reasons that it could probably be for another time. But gaming and TV primarily were my influences. And then as I got older, like I said, I'm not an adult. I'm a child with money. So I start finding out about like conventions and how I never been to one. And you can literally play dress up and it doesn't just have to be Halloween. I was like, sounds like a good idea. Sign me up. And then my first one ever was, for me, a rather bold one. I don't know if you're all familiar with Resident Evil, but Ada Wong, the femme fatale herself. That was my first ever cosplay. And I know there's a lot of controversy of different races playing different things. We won't have to get into that. But I was like, after I did that one successfully and loved it for myself and other people, but it was mostly for me, I tell people all the time, I said, listen, you don't have to wait. It doesn't have to be movie great, glamorous, whoever you want to play, however you want to play it within reason. Go do it. And people are like, I'm so scared. I said, I fully back you. I support you. If you need me to throw on my dress and my heels and my wig, I got you. I was like, anything is possible. It's all in the name of fun and the experience. I'll never forget the first BlurredCon I've been to. I think it was 2021. And again, I'm a huge Resident Evil fan. I saw a Jill and a Nemesis. I literally fangirled. I flew down the escalator, almost tripped and fell. Cornered them like some creepy person was like, I have to get a picture with you. And ever since then, it's just been like anything and everything that my finances will allow. Sometimes I do stretch it, and it's like, okay, we're going to have to make some sacrifices later down the line. Because I am infamous for going like Artist Alley and just forgetting like, hey, budgets and limits are a thing. I'll swipe and won't even think of it till like 2 or 3 days later. But that's essentially how I got into it. It's why I'm not going to give you the tour of my house, but there's so much more anime, pop culture, media stuff around this house. I need a house, not just a 1 bedroom for the
This ends your moment right there. But cosplay is for everybody at the end of the day. So, and I understand people can be nervous about certain cosplay, certain characters. It's like, just do it. Have fun with it. Don't worry about what everybody else says. Like, we're all happy for you right there. Don't listen to what else. Just listen to the internet. Just do your thing at the end of the day.
Yep.
And we have one newcomer into the Knuckles Family and Friends stream. We have LilipopeCosplay, and I met her almost 2 years ago at the X-Men 97 meetup. That was a great meetup, right? That's when after season 1 ended earlier that year. The turnout was great. you were Jean that year, correct?
I was Jean Grey that year, and I remember
Yeah.
you were Magneto, and you had the sign, and it was like perfect.
Yeah, I'm like, I had to do it. It was the
It was
promo right
perfect.
there.
It was so perfect.
Yes, and it was such a great meetup. Y'all organized that like perfectly right there. I loved it.
Thank
And
you.
you are actually an official kind of curator for New York Comic Con. So I want to say
Ooh.
congrats on that right there.
Thank you. Thank
Round of
you.
applause. And you are doing this also having kids. That ain't easy to
Yeah.
do. That is not easy to do. So
I don't even know.
props to you, Lilipo.
Thank
Props
you.
to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So how do you become like a nerd? Like, was X-Men like your first love into Marvel? Because like you do like a bunch of comics and gaming. Like you're all over the place right now. So
Yeah.
like, how do you become the nerd that you are today?
So I didn't know that this was going to be a question, but it's very
Sorry.
appropriate that we're talking about X-Men 97, because X-Men, I would say the original animated series, I would say probably was like my gateway into like all things nerdy. I mean, it like introduced me to comic books, to like genre television, and it was like one of the real first like nerdy things that I just became like obsessed with as a child. Like the original animated Fox X-Men show. And so when like X-Men was coming, when they announced like X-Men 97, it was almost like a fever dream. I'm like, is this really happening?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I loved it so much. And then I just got like into like other things from Star Wars. I love Star Wars. Buffy, like the other DC animated shows, was another big thing that kind of like introduced me then into like comics. And then yeah, I just like went from there. Started going to comic conventions. There was one on Long Island that I would go to, that's no longer called Icon. And then I went to my first New York Comic Con in 2008, which is a long time ago.
I went. My first was 2014. So like, kind of
Yeah.
like I'm like not there, but I'm kind of right
Yeah,
there.
but it's changed so much, right? Like, and I like it because like the community has built, but it's just like a very different con than it was like 10, 15 years ago.
Oh yeah, I can agree.
And I think because like this like nerdy stuff that we love has become like more mainstream and more like popular, which is like cool. But yeah, and I did my first cosplay in 2013 at New York Comic Con. I did Katniss Everdeen from the Hunger Games.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and the Hunger Games is like kind of having a moment. It's coming back with a new movie, and they have the new book and stuff, which is really great. And yeah, I just love all this stuff. I love cosplaying. I feel like I'm just like gonna steal like what Chris said, because it is like being like just a child with money. I just want to play dress up.
And on that note, it's funny you mentioned Hunger Games, because one friend randomly had books. It was a gift to them. They didn't care for it. I read like
so
the
listen, by the way,
first
I'm just letting my friend know we're live. It's good.
No worries. And I went and saw the movie, and I'll never forget because I think it was around Thanksgiving. After seeing that movie, I went home. I believe the next day was Black Friday. I bought a bow and arrow.
Yes!
That is perfect right there.
I'm gonna get it. And my friend was like, "Are you serious?" And I literally showed them my Amazon cart and when it would be here. And she's like, "We just saw the movie 2 hours ago." And I said, "And I am going to be the next Katniss Everdeen."
It's so awesome. Oh my gosh. I was thinking of like bringing her back because I haven't cosplayed her in a while.
Yes.
I think she's so great, you know?
Now the question is, which rendition would you do? Would you do the first movie? Would you do Mockingjay? Which one?
Yeah, so I've cosplayed 2 of the 3. I have not done Mockingjay yet. The third movie I have not done, or the third book, I should say, because the third book was made into the 2 movies. I did Catching Fire and I did the original Hunger Games. Yes. So those were the first 2 I did, and I did them both at 2013 New York Comic Con. But I haven't done the last one, and I'm like, oh, I should do it. So how about you? Which
series?
Have you done them all, or have you done one version?
I wish I would have, but honestly, there are so many fun and interesting characters with their own personalities. I would know where to start. Like, obviously, Haymitch would be a comedic relief, like a hilarious one.
But now he's like front and center because he's the book.
Yes.
You know.
Even if you do a Ballad of Song and Snake, like they're pretty good. Like, no matter which movie, I feel like there are good signature characters that aren't like copy and paste. Like they
Yes.
all
Yeah.
have their own individual personalities that
That's
people
good.
are like, oh, this is you, or oh, this is different. It's not, drag and dropped from something else.
Yeah. That's awesome.
See, I didn't see the Hunger Games, so it's like I know the characters, but I just don't know. Yeah. Don't.
No, it's so good. I started with the books, and the books were like page turners, and so like I couldn't put them down. And then I think the movies did a really good job generally of translating the books on into like a film adaptation. So
So would you say it's one of the few films that have a good book adaptation to a movie? Because some of them are be like crap.
yeah, I think so. The only thing I would say is I don't think the third book needed to be two movies. I think that they did like a good job, but I just I like the third book. Like I understand like what the author was trying to do. I just didn't feel like it read as strong as the first two, although I appreciate like what she was trying to do with the third.
Yeah.
And so then they like made it two movies, and I don't know if that was necessary.
Yeah, and I think that was the issue with I think that's the Divergent Harry Potter-ish area. As a long time Harry Potter fan, my email is HP Mad Scientist, and that's been since middle school, so it speaks for itself.
Now it makes sense why your email's that.
I get why the last one had to be two, because there was so much. You had the Percival brothers, and you had the Horcruxes, and they even make a point. I think it's like 2 or 3 chapters in the final book. They're deciding which one are they going to go after and which one they're going to commit. But if I remember correctly, I don't think Divergent had a 2-part ending, but I know Twilight, whatever the final movie in that, they had it. Harry Potter, obviously, I deem it warranted, but I'm also biased. And then following suit, Hunger Games naturally had a 2-part.
Yeah.
So I guess in the future I gotta watch the movie and then let y'all know what I think about it.
Yes.
I think it's coming back to theaters. Like they're re-releasing it in the fall. Like they're bringing the movies back, like for like a limited edition sort of.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can get the theaters. I
I will
think.
do
And it's all those streaming services.
Yes, it's on streaming.
Yeah, that's right. But I still like the atmosphere of a movie theater, though.
Yeah.
I still do. All right, guys. So like I said, X-Men 97 2 season 2 just ended on almost a week ago, right there. We're gonna give our thoughts about it, and so I can assume that we all like season 1, right? Like we all were enjoying it, and we were very excited for the second season. And so the second season was mainly focused on Apocalypse. People arguably say that the first 4 episodes of season 2 were great, and then the rest of the season was like kind of had a pacing issue right there. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But so we're not going to go by like every single episode piece by piece. We're going to give like, overall thoughts, important moments, the future, MX 97, 97, season 3 or 4. Apparently, I think they said season 3 is announced. And they say about season 4 at all?
I think they announced both. I think you're right.
Both,
they did both. Yeah.
They announced both right there. So like, let's get into it. So in this one, season 2, we have the X-Men in the future, have the X-Men in the past, when we see Apocalypse. It started out with, in the future with Wolverine, Storm, Forge, Morph. Yeah, those 5 right there. And Forge coming to save them, bring back to the 90s, where Apocalypse's reign is going on right now. And then they have to train Nathan as well too. So I really enjoyed that first episode, knowing, Gene and Scott, hopefully you're Chris.
I was
right there.
Sorry, I don't know why. I think the mouse pad was acting a little wonky. I was trying to get it. My bad.
Don't die me right now, buddy. Don't die me. But no, I really liked the first episode, and I also forgot that Wolverine and even Clothes were taken out. And so I saw the pain in my guy's eyes. I'm like, oh, yes, he's not the same right now. He is like, it's hurting, actually finding some of these Emmys right now. But that I thought was a very good first episode. One moment that I learned from, and I love the X-Men. Now, I mainly watch the TV shows. I read a few comics, but I wouldn't say I'm an actual expert on, the comics and everything like that. But like, one thing that I really liked from that first episode was I learned that not only Storm can control the weather, but like she can control like cosmic weather as well too. So if I'm like in the space right there, I can get the weather from the solar and actually use that on you right there. I thought that was a great one. I'm like, oh, I know Storm was powerful, but I didn't think she was powerful like that. Everybody's gonna be like, well, duh, of course she is. You're not really comes. I'm like, well, yeah, I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah,
Like, I'm not to that level
I
right
don't.
there.
Because I'm an avid Storm fan, bits and pieces come to me from here or there. I have not read the comics, but I heard it touches deeper on like even her heritage. Like, I do remember seeing a clip or a page of a comic where somebody was talking to her and they were talking to about her. She comes from an ancestry of witches
Yeah.
as well, and there's a difference in her lightning. Like when it's, I think, white, don't quote me, but I think when it's white, it's weather and natural bound, and when it's blue, it's her generating it from herself. So don't crucify me if I got it mixed up. But I always thought that was an interesting concept because her backstory has remained pretty consistent. One of my other favorite, Scarlet Witch, which we won't get into. So to see them manifest like her Jean Grey moment of like she's so much more powerful than most people realize, because everybody's like, oh, she can control weather. Oh, she can control weather. And I'm like, there are instances where she is literally controlling the atmosphere of a planet and helping sustain life on it. And I was like, even the old comics, if I'm not mistaken, it's either the old comics or Evolution that touches a bit on that, where she essentially goes to a whole nother planet and is worshipped as their queen and helps them sustain their, I guess, atmosphere. I don't remember if it was like atmosphere or ecosystem or whatever. Terminology eludes me right now. But it was like, she's so much more powerful than some people realize.
I can't even argue with that right now. I get involved. I'm like, damn. He said all those words. I'm like, damn. How do I felt with that? Yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right.
And I feel like anytime you have the power to shift something planetary level, you're a pretty good threat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But that's one of the things that me and Ara, we were actually talking about before the show was her role in the show, though, and how limited it is. Because of how powerful she is, it's almost interesting that you get episodes where there's essentially like getting their butts kicked, and then next thing you know, like she conjures up all these powers and just wipes everything clean. And it's just like, well, why didn't you start with that? Like it's always like people like Storm and Jean that you're just like, you have all this untapped power that if you just tap into it, like the majority of the fights wouldn't even last as long as they do. So
the lady did tell her that it was your part of the plan, and I don't think Storm was surprised with her. Like, wait, I control the weather. I don't control all this right there. So, her defense, she didn't know she could do all that.
Honestly, and I think some of it is like they take the Batman approach, where it's like, oh, I don't kill, and then some take my girl Wonder Woman's approach, and it's like, no, I'm going to end this, and I'm going to end this now.
Yeah, that's why like I was like curious as to when X-Men 97, like the time frame that it's in, where under Professor X, like, is it the still learning, or is it they have adapted their powers and they fully are controlled? And that's where like I kind of get confused with like this season of like X-Men.
Yeah, same. It was like, I love the fact that she got her powers back at the end of season 1, but it was interesting. Uh-oh. Can y'all still hear me okay? It looks like I'm frozen.
I can hear you. You're like frozen.
You are frozen.
No.
Well, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
You still hear me perfectly fine. But yeah, I was like, her power scaling, so to speak, in this season was amazing, but quick. Like you said, I agree with you. Like, it was a flash of like empowering moment, and then kind of you don't hear or see anything about it until she pairs up with Jean Grey and does their powers together. And I was like, okay, now we're getting that X-Men Legends game where we get the team ups of like superpowers.
Great game, by the way. If y'all love X-Men, I would very highly recommend that game. But speaking of Storm, we will get into that a little bit later in the show, because we are setting up something from the future right now, so we'll hold off on that right there. But so Leah, what did you think about that first episode? Jean, with your girl Jean and Scott.
Yeah. So I really, and I think you touched on it, I thought like the first 4 episodes were really, really strong. And the first episode in particular, like really set the season, I felt like on a really good trajectory, and it kind of got like lost in the second half. But that first episode, I the story with Jean and Scott and Nathan, especially like now as a mom, I'm like, I could never leave my son. And even like when they did that, like, last season, when they first sent him off, like just pulled on my like heart like so badly. And I also really like in that first episode, I just really appreciated the animation. I thought like the animation in that episode and like just the world design of like the future was so, it was just beautiful to me. But I really thought they did a really good job, and I liked like the framework of like they went, they started in the future, and then for episodes 3 and 4 they go into the past, and you see a little bit of the present in episode 2. The thing. And like I guess it sort of touched on too, like you kind of get like blips of like the characters. Like you had like this moment for Storm, for instance, but then she just kind of like disappears from like the season, and so like there was kind of like a little bit of like, I felt like they never, like by the end of season 2 and 4. Anyway, I really enjoyed season 2, but I just felt like nothing, it just didn't get pulled together in the same way. So like when everybody was finally back together in like the 90s, like I didn't feel like that sort of like resolution of like, well, they were all in these different places and then they came back together, and like we had this moment for Storm, for example, and like nothing then came of it like after, like, so it was a lot of like, I guess like threads put out there, but I just don't feel like they kind of pulled everything together in the way as strongly as I would have hoped for this season, even though I still really enjoyed it.
I agree. No. It was like you said threads, and it wasn't woven. Like first season, completely understandable because I didn't expect her to lose her powers. My heart, I said, I swear to God, if y'all don't fix this. But even in that, you saw the flashes and moments of her talking to Forge, how she felt betrayed when she realized, when they had the discussion of him creating that to begin with, her facing her own inner demons, figuratively and literally, and coming back into herself. And then there was kind of like a natural, I guess, re-including into the xmen where they were and everything, versus this one, like you said, it was like, oh, did you know you're a being of a cosmic level? And she was like, I am. And then poof, Houdini until
she kind of disappeared, unfortunately, like for a lot of the season. Like I feel like not till the end, like did we get her really like back in action.
And you saw people like I can't remember specifically like who was on the ship or around with her then, but you saw them in other episodes leading up to the end. So I think that's the real strange, and maybe it's storylining. I'm not a writer or anything like that. Maybe they were trying to, again, nerf the powers, like follow tropes similar to movies, how, the strongest person or the person doesn't have that ability to survive until the end, that final straw that pushes them over the edge. But it created for an interesting dynamic that, like you've all said, so forgive me if I'm beating a dead horse. It was like, where did we go with that?
Well, I know I'm going to say this to the end, but I'm going to give you a little preview. Apparently, it was a rumor, which we'll get into a little bit later in the show. Storm was supposed to have a bigger role this season, apparently. Apparently, but we'll get into a little bit later right there. We'll get a little bit later. But how would you feel about, if you were Scott and G and you have your son here, would you like alter that timeline and just,
I couldn't even think about
it. Time is such a strong thing. It's like, if you fuck up one thing here, you can fuck up the whole entire time. So it's like, I feel their pain, but it's like, yo, we gotta go. But I said, I'm not a parent, so like maybe it's even for me. But
I don't know.
Look, you're the only parent here right now, so
I know. And I was like, when Jean's like we're just gonna do, what we know by our son. I'm like, yeah, like I don't know. It was just hard. It's hard. I mean, I don't know. It was like even in season 1, I was hard to watch. I'm like, I don't know. I guess
it's very tough.
I don't know. It's
and
definitely emotional.
Agreed. And it's like another show I watched called Once Upon a Time.
Yes, oh my gosh.
I was like, when they had to send Emma into the future, I'm not a parent, but I don't know if I could do that. I'm like, I'm going to have my child with me and figure it out. But, Jean and Scott chose what they chose, just like Emma and Prince Charming chose what they chose. And again, because he was infected with, I think it's called the technovirus.
Yeah.
I also get it. They're like, we don't have the advanced technology or whatever the case may be, as strong and powerful as she is, as much of a great leader as he is. And I don't remember if she tapped into her Phoenix Force or not then. So it was like although again, I'm assuming any parent would not want that to be the choice. It's like a Sophia's choice situation.
Yeah.
Like, I can't choose. So
Oh.
it's like, keep him here and risk him having greater risk of him dying before you find a cure, or send him off into some future that you have no foresight on. And I also thought that was an interesting dynamic, even when they touched on like him describing these travelers, because time travel is a very funny thing, where if you travel into the future, the present becomes the past, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So seeing that them going into the future was his past, is like, how do you balance and delegate that we don't change something? Because eventually the goal was for them to get back to his past, their present, right? And so had he said or spoke on certain things that might have influenced them, and in the same aspect, because it's a double-edged sword, if they operated or did things, it's not like this is grown up mature Cable. This is child Cable growing up into who he becomes.
Not
So
understand his power and everything.
Yeah, so they can't influence it in certain ways without, I guess, disrupting the timeline.
Yes.
It
I
was
thought that
nice.
was an interesting aspect.
It was nice training them, and like, you know, when they were captured, I think Jim was telling them, hey, you know, you can do this. Like, I like, you know, that parent teaching their child their powers right there. So I thought that was a very cute moment. Obviously, it didn't last long, and they had to go into their time, but it was nice to see like the people, like Nathan being that leader for those people in that time right there. So I thought that was like a very, very dope thing. Now, we were talking about, you know, people having moments, and in episode 2, it was cool to see Jubilee have her moment right there. We know she was captured by X-Force. You know, she freed all those beings. And here's my thing: us fans. What's up?
Was it X Factor?
Oh no, X. Yeah, my X Factor. I'm sorry. Which, by the way, dope intro for X-Force. By the way, I like how the intros always have like a new character or a new title. Like, these intros have been dope. So I'm like, don't they do the X-Force intro right now? But yep, they did the X-Force intro right there. We got Psylocke, Archangel, and like I said before, us X-Men fans, we know how powerful Jubilee can be. And people sleep on that moment, seeing when she was trapped within that video game and actually meeting the old voice actress from Jubilee. That was a dope moment. I don't think the episode gets talked about right there, what the nostalgia it had, but that's not here or there. But this episode, when she was whooping those security dudes' butts, I'm like, see, Jubilee, we know we love you right there. Put some respect on Jubilee's name right there. That was an amazing moment. I'm like, yeah, we need more of that right there. Like, those are Jubilee right there. Like,
I did like that coming to a realization of how impactful Jubilee is, like in this, what they were showing in this season. Because I think Jubilee, even then, like in the old like TV show, like they didn't really show like her actual potential power and like what her power could do. It was always she was just had like these flashy like fireworks that she shot off on her fingers. So it was like, all right, well, like what kind of use does she have? But like you were saying, like when they showed the episode of her seeing her future self with the advanced power and how she could control it, you were like, oh, like wow, like she has like, you know, her potential of like who she's going to become, and like showing like her powers in that way. And even in that season, episode 2, when she's with X Factor and like she's in there and she's like kind of dismantling like all like the security guards, and she's just kind of like just going without me, like I got this. It was like, wow, like, you know, it kind of gave you this idea that like, oh, Jubilee's actually a badass, you know. And
character development.
Yeah, even like in later episodes where she's face to face with the leader of X Factor, and like, and they're having like the duel fight on the jets, and she gets the best of them, and like, you know, it kind of just shows like her elevation and kind of like how she's kind of ascended into like, you know, becoming like who she's potentially going to be.
Yeah, I loved when potential comes to fruition, and like you said, the first series did an amazing job, but she was, you know, like the annoying kid, like the little brother or sister who your mom makes you take everywhere you want to go, even though you want to chill with your friends and do more mature things. So it was like good to see her in this season come into herself and her own identity as well. Like even when she first joined them and it was like, oh yeah, we're going to murk him, you know, eliminate all targets. She's like, whoa, like this is not what I signed up for. And I think even the heart to heart, standing up to Polaris, someone that I'm assuming loved and trusted because they were on the same team once upon a time. I know it's easier for younger age people to be like, oh, this is my mentor, my elder. They know what's best. And Jubilee was like, no. She was like, this is not, you know, the teachings of Professor X, or this isn't right. And you know in your heart of hearts that it isn't. I like that she gave that pushback and stood up for not only herself, but her beliefs and not how she was raised, but what she thought was right. Not just like, oh, you know best because you know you left the team and you seem okay. She was like, no. She was like, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. And I think deep down you know that. So kudos for her really getting her glow up, pun intended.
I had the fortune of being able to attend the premiere at the Tribeca Film Festival.
That's right, you did.
I did. So I got to see this and the reaction to episode 2 when you see the X Force opening, like the way the audience reacted to that. I mean, like when I saw, I was like giddy, and the reaction to Jubilee was so positive. Like people loved, and I include me as the part of people, we like loved seeing her like come into her own. And I loved, and which has been discussed, but there were 2 really like standout scenes. I think the scene where she challenges Cable as to like, this is not like the morality of them choosing to kill, and like, do we do this, do we not do this is not what we do. And then similarly like calling out Polaris, and like really becoming like a moral compass in a way as to, like, what we do and this is what we don't do. And I like thought that episode in particular was so strong because it really did like point out or raise questions as to like, do the ends justify the means, or when do they justify the means? And like, and almost like her reaction to both Polaris and to Cable, and they're both on like separate sides,
right?
They're both pushing, like they think that they're right, like their ends are correct, but the way that they're doing it is so obviously wrong, and she was really like not afraid to call them out, which I think was great. I also felt like the stuff, I don't know, I'm too political, but the stuff with like the X Factor and what was going on with X Factor, I think was very timely and like I think really important, food for thought. And I think her, and again, like Jubilee kind of being like no to Polaris, and I think like setting the stage for Polaris's journey.
Yes, I think so.
I would have liked to have seen 2, and I think this is like, I think this is why maybe this season overall struggled. I feel like there just needed to be like a handful more episodes, because like we had this great episode for Jubilee, and like we get like some of her back, like, and like she stands up to Havoc at the end, and she really does come into her own at the end. But like I still feel like we need a little bit more for her, like when she reunites with the X-Men and like their reactions, because they hadn't seen each other in a while, and just like a little bit more, because like we had this great episode in episode 2, and then we just didn't. I feel like we just didn't get like enough of her before we kind of got her like her little scene at the end in episode 9. So I would have liked to have a little bit more.
I mean, yeah, everyone's been talking about the pacing issue. Now, correct me if I'm wrong though, like season 1 only had 10 episodes. Do you feel as though season 1 needed more episodes? Because I feel as though with season 1, it was like they knew what the main theme was. Season 2 was like the first 4 episodes mainly on Apocalypse, which 3 and 4 we're getting to that pretty soon. But like it was like 5, 6, 7, which I loved all of them. They were just in a way you can say filler episodes, and next you know it's like, hey, we're fighting Apocalypse right now.
Big battle.
Gambit / Apocalypse. So it's like, why I get what you're saying, but I just feel as though like 3 episodes didn't really fit the main plot, which I still enjoyed
Yes,
them, but it was like we kind of didn't really need them though, because it's like the main focus was Apocalypse. Which, speaking
I
of
agree.
Apocalypse, episode 3 and 4, we have some of the X-Men. We have Professor Magneto, Beast, Nightcrawler, and Rogue. In the past, we have Entrepreneur, um, Apocalypse. I thought it was very interesting how Magneto was trying to lead this guy to be good, not have him kill anybody, not become our enemy right there. Brett was like, "Do you know who this guy is? He's our world enemy right now. Like, what are you doing?"
It's
Like,
the classic baby Hitler question. I won't say it because I don't know what you're allowed to say and not to say, but if you know that question, you know that question.
Yes, yeah.
yeah.
And to back up to the Jubilee thing, I do, since we are in the MCU-ish. Sorry about that. I don't know what weird noises are going on outside. It's similar to, like, I feel like X Factor, right, Anthony? X Factor?
Yeah.
Which X Force?
I feel like X Factor is what the Avengers would have been, or at least the Avengers that signed the Accords. Like that
Oh, that's a
Civil
good
War.
point.
Yeah.
And I always love that connection because, again, I have not ingested a lot of the comics. I just don't have the time or finances, unfortunately, or the mental brain power. So I'm like, if you put it animated, or at least like the YouTube, somebody gives like a quick breakdown. But I felt like that was very reminiscent. It was like Jubilee was if this is our version of checks and balances, and it's proven to be corruptible. They've made Sentinels. They've had secret missions and ops to personally take us out. You have the FOH. Why would we trust them to be our checks and balances? And so I always thought that was an interesting dynamic. And then to fast forward to you, like you said, the pacing, I feel like a lot of times some things have so much content that they're trying to cram into such a little space and time, or the opposite. Like, I'm going to touch on Agatha all along. I feel like, personal opinion, to each his own. The last episode honestly didn't need to happen. Like, I get it. It attempted to be a wrap up and flush out things, and it probably did touch on comic mention. So again, forgive me, I have not read the comics. But for me, like, the big battle at the end was great. The big reveals and everything. And then we had this filler episode at the end where, in my opinion, as someone that was, waiting week to week to week, I'm like, I'd have been okay had y'all not did this. Like, had the battle ended and things subsided, I would have been okay. I didn't need the reveal that she'd be a ghost mentoring Wiccan, whatever. It's one of the ones where, like, if I rewatch the season, I probably won't watch that episode.
Most likely not.
But yeah, pacing is always, again, timelines and pacing itself is always an interesting thing.
It's interesting because I feel like season 2 was almost like for the fandom, right? Because of X-Men. Because even I wasn't too familiar with X Factor and that group, but this was like kind of great for people that aren't familiar with that team. And that's how they kind of introduced them in this season, being kind of like how you had like I'm going back to Avengers, like you had Civil War, where you had like a group that was pretty much like fighting with the government and saying we need checks and balances, and others are saying no, like this is how we should do things, because they don't know it from our end. So it was like interesting to see that group in this, and like I thought it was pretty cool too, like because if you're watching obviously on Disney Plus, when you go to the episode and it shows the graphic of like who's going to be in that episode, and you're like, oh, like this is pretty cool. Like the graphics is showing like this group or the team that's going to be in this episode, right? So I thought that was like kind of like it was like an intro to Polaris, because I think a lot of people, that aren't familiar with the comics and things of that nature, knowing that that's Magneto's daughter and how powerful she is, it showed like how powerful she is. And that was like kind of cool to see her kind of switch up things, where he was like, oh, well, the school is no longer, so I'm going with this team to fulfill things. But then, like you said, like Jubilee was like, hey, this is not how you do things. Like, you need to snap back into reality. And then she kind of has like a wake-up call. So it kind of like is like leading into like what they might do with her later on, where people are like, oh, like I'm really interested in this character now. And now with everything that happened with Magneto, now she's kind of filling in those shoes.
Well, speaking of Magneto, like I said, I definitely get to the positive, so I just want to get back to like the past part. We always have past that part, like episode 3 and 4. But how did you guys feel that Magneto was trying to train, like I said, Apocalypse into a good guy? Because I feel as though, once again, that's messed up the whole entire timeline right there. And we fought this guy many times. This guy is a monster. Like, it's kind of fun to see how like Magneto's being like Professor's being like Magneto right now.
Yes,
like,
yeah.
We're switching things up. Right? It's like, we gotta kill this guy, but it's like, no, he could be a potential X-Men. I'm just sitting there like, Magneto, I love you, man, but like, I don't know. I don't think this is gonna work right now, buddy. Like, I don't know, man.
I like the fact that, insert quote, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And I do think it speaks to Magneto's, if you think about him, at his core, right, he is about the survival of mutants. And if that means the elimination of humans, then so be it. And to see his character develop, because Charles is like one of his longtime trusted friends, like even if you go back to season 1 and he like gripped him up and took him out of space, he said, listen, don't let me down, because then I'm gonna have to let you down. So for him to go back in the past and see the potential of Insabanor, I think it touches more, like it was more altruistic than selfish, which is for me one of the first few times I see that, because in his mind he was probably thinking, imagine now if I put him or helped him or guided him to the right path, how many mutants would be saved? How better, Genosha would have been. Like, I think he's looking not just in the present of, the Egyptian time. I think it was 3000 BC or whatever. Forgive me if I don't get it correct. But just for generations down the line, maybe it's a stretch, but maybe the Holocaust wouldn't have happened. Maybe he wouldn't have lost his parents. Maybe so many things that happened to mutants where Genosha had to even be a thing in the first place, a sanctuary, such as like, the Native Americans and the reserves and stuff. Maybe he was thinking that far ahead versus Charles was so focused on fixing the problem in the present, like their present, but they were in back in the past. And forgive me, I know the timeline jumping back and forth is a lot, so the wording is going to be a little weird. But I believe that Professor X was highly focused on his failures, 1, and 2, fixing his present, versus Magneto was like, this is what you taught me, this is what you believed in. Your view may be askew because this is a young man who has the potential to be good. He hasn't reached that apocalypse level yet. This is Unsabanor, not Apocalypse.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're treating Unsabanor like Apocalypse. So I thought it was always interesting, and I am very much gray area. Sometimes ends justify the means. Sometimes you need a check and balance. But I like what he attempted to do. I would have probably been a little more forthcoming because of that. But I would have backed Magneto in this specific instance.
I thought, like has been said, I love that it really was like Charles and Magneto switching sort of like the way that you would expect them to approach. And I feel like particularly Magneto had so much great character growth from even season 1 into the season. And though episodes 3 and 4 like were just tremendous and
arguably the best episodes.
Yeah, they were just tremendous episodes. And like the relationship and the dynamic and the history that's reflected in those episodes between Magneto and Xavier, I thought was just wonderful. And seeing sort of like almost like a weird sort of reversal in philosophical thought and approach in some ways, although I can see too like how it is also rooted in how like who they are and what their sort of bottom lines are. But it was just, they were just, I mean, the end of episode 4, I was like, what did I just watch? It was, but yeah, those episodes were really tremendous.
I feel like it was one of those, they're both attacking the same problem, but with 2 different approaches. Because oftentimes me and coworkers and friends we'll be talking, and it seems like it's such a vast difference in what we're saying. Like, that's not what I'm saying at all. And then eventually we come to that middle ground of, I think we're saying the exact same thing, just in different verbiage.
Yeah. And at first I thought this could possibly work, but like in episode 4, just when they're like, wait, this place looks familiar right now. Turns out, that temple is actually a ship. But just like the fear, the whole tone, everything just changes. Like, yo, man, we can get the F out of here right now. And then it's like, you were trying to leave me away from this place. No, now I know who I want to be. Survival of the fittest. That's been Apocalypse's words since the beginning. And the fact that, he was like, you know what? I want to become this guy. I want to become, this destruction right there. I was like, oh shit. They were like, Bishop was like, am I over here that's making sense right now? We need to get the hell out of here, go back to our time right now, because y'all were trying to change this guy. It didn't work. So we need to get out of here. I just felt as though that reveal when, Ensemble went to become Apocalypse, I was like, yeah, I'm kind of scared for y'all right now. And McNeil was like, y'all go. I'm going to go ahead and fix my mistake right now. And I'm like, don't do this, man. Don't do this. And which, by the way, my bad, Anthony.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, it was also pretty cool to see Roman Tut was actually Kane the Conqueror. It was like, yeah, go back to a different time with the Conqueror. And I'm like, what the hell, man? Like, you're in the whole entire time? Like, I hardly mentioned, like, and that's what I love as they bring, like, so many, like, characters, which, by the way, shout out to Mark for, becoming all the Avenger characters, which, I thought was pretty dope. But yeah, man, like, Ken and Conquer, you were here? It's like, yeah, I'm out, guys. So this timeline is I gotta find a new time to conquer. I'm like, well, damn. Okay, bye. I guess that's our only preview of seeing him in the MCU, I guess. So I'm sorry, Anthony, you go ahead.
No, you bring up a good point. But one of the things that you were talking about with Magneto in this in that episode, because when they're actually trying to stop, from becoming Apocalypse, it's almost like you got to see like what kind of sparked him into becoming that kind of character, and it's also the same kind of influence that drove like Magneto to feel the way that he did, like all the stuff that he had did, like as an slave, like Egyptian, and all of like the whippings and just being treated unfairly. It was kind of like a kickback on, I'm actually more powerful than you, and I'm going to wipe you all off the face of the earth, kind of thing. So to me, it was almost like you kind of, I don't know, I kind of was waving like, yeah, I'm feeling him, and as far as like Apocalypse and why he became who he was, even though he became somebody that was like destructive of everyone.
Yeah.
But it was like kind of like he was kind of just in like how he felt, and I understand why, like Magneto was trying to press him like, this is not the way, like there's a better way of doing it because you are so strong. He's kind of like, I want you on my team, and then like in the end, obviously like with that scene. So yeah, I thought that was like, I liked how they included that in this and showing that side of him.
It was really cool to see, and it was just very, very sad that after all the attempts they tried to make this guy good, it just didn't work, and Apocalypse just had to, like, with an evil smile, just had to, like, kill off Magneto like that. And to me, it just seems to show that in X-Men 97, nobody is safe. Because in season 1, we had Gambit dying. Because back in the old days, everybody survives. But, like, you know what? We're gonna have you guys cry a little bit right now in these sections. Like, Gambit's dead, and now okay, I'm not a conspiracy theory guy, but it's like Apocalypse killed Magneto, but I'm like, where's his body? I'm like, where's his body go?
I think Magneto's gonna make it come back somehow.
I mean, there are so many mutants and stuff who are revived through various means that we won't get into. But one quote comes to mind that I want to piggyback off something. I can't remember the name of the movie, but Salma Hayek was in it. But she was essentially talking to somebody about, it's easy to break something. And I feel like that was Magneto's mentality. It's easy to break the will of humans and destroy them because we are stronger. But then she talks about, nurturing or growing or mending something takes time, takes practice, takes restraint. And I feel like that's where Magneto was with it. It was like, yes, he could obviously eliminate Insaminor to prevent Apocalypse. However, he was trying to set him on the right path because he does see him as a fellow mutant. And many of the stories that you find that all these mutants come to Professor X because they're lost or wayward souls trying to find their way. Even backing to Polaris, like I think Anthony, you had said it. It was like after X-Men or the X Mansion was done, she's like, I don't know what to do with this anymore. And I'm not going to say she was fully on board with the governing of mutants. However, she had nowhere else to go. She was lost, and she's like, they seem like they have the answers. They seem like they know what they're doing, which is why I think it made it pivotal, that moment where, like you said, Jubilee gave her that wake-up call, was like, hey, like, there's more than one solution, and it was like, this might not be the one. Excuse me. And I always thought that to be interesting, because it's like pressure points. It's like, how much pressure do you add? Is it too much? Is it enough? Like many things in life itself. Like, was I too harsh? Did I coddle too much? Which is why I always like looking at these particular storylines and things like that, because they have real life applications. Like, were you too harsh with a friend that needed a soft, gentle touch? Or were you too, not too kind? What's the word I'm looking for? You know, in reverse. And were you too aggressive with someone that needed a nurturing, kind moment? And were you too harsh, or were you too kind for someone that needed a little more direct approach, as someone who just struggles in life because of mental faculties? That doesn't have to be a thing here or there. It is always a fine line to walk and question and challenge yourself. When was I wrong? How could I have changed this? What do I do moving forward? And I think, you know, forgive me if I'm beating a dead horse, but Magneto was at the precipice of trying to change himself for the betterment of, granted, it may have just been mutant kind, but mankind in general. Yeah. Because Professor X drilled and drilled and drilled and drilled into him that, you know, we can coexist, we can get along, we can help each other, that it finally started to click. He's like, maybe it can, like a light at the end of the tunnel sort of situation. Like maybe if certain things were tweaked and changed, maybe if they were approached from not the authoritarian standpoint, maybe, you know, a little bending can prevent break. And so it was unfortunate to see this self-fulfilling prophecy, so to speak. Even if you look back in like Greek mythology, it's like Zeus came to be the power he was because Cronus was so fearful of a child eventually taking his spot in place that he literally just started eating his own children. He's like, I'll be damned if one of you take my throne. Versus if he was like, I realize that this is going to be the future. And if it is to be, let me make sure that you're the best version of you that you can be. It's sort of that people trying to hold on to power situation. So self-fulfilling prophecies are always interesting to me for how they play out. It's that this is where we are, but we're not quite sure how we got here. And then, like you said, you can humanize someone versus like, oh, you're a villain, you're evil, you're bad. But when you go back into the past, similar to what Anthony said, you saw the enslavement of his people, you saw the mistreatment, and he was like, yeah, if I was in that predicament, because, you know, there's certain real life applications that we don't have to get into where I would just say, I would be one that went, I'm trying to say this in a politically correct way.
Don't get canceled. Don't get canceled now.
Exactly. I wouldn't have followed the path that some chose. And it is not a slight to them because, again, most people during these times were trying to survive. If you know the time I'm talking about, you know. So in their minds, it was, I'm going to do whatever it takes to survive, whether it's for me, my family, my husband, my children, or whatever. I, as someone not attached to that or as many ties, I have a liberty or freedom, and sometimes it feels like a duty, honestly, to stand up for the underdog or to, you know, stand up for what's right, even though in that time challenging societal wise what's right. Like if you think about back then, there, you know, the people in power deserved it for whatever reason during that time. It was led to believe they deserve it. Why would anyone challenge that? What difference would that make? And then you start to see, oh, wait a minute, I don't have to take this. Even if you look at Bug's Life and the Ants movies, it's like we can all stand up together and make a major difference. Like we don't have to just follow the social norm. of what's going on. If we all are in agreement that something is wrong and needs to change, and I just think, unfortunately, Professor X and Magneto not cohesive, but like a unanimous decision on how to approach En Salvanor. I think everybody, because it was just like, oh, we stopped this big thing at the end of season 1, is like blip right to the past unknowingly. They were literally dropped into a sink or swim situation, and so their approaches were different. Professor X trying to learn from his mistakes of the past and give a little bit of Magneto, and Magneto trying to learn from his mistakes of the past and give it a little bit of a Professor X approach.
They always speak in some bars right now, Chris. Like, God damn, man.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
It's like, damn,
I'm not a philosophical person, but if I am ever speaking too much, just let me know.
No, it's all good. It's all good. But no, to your point right there, no, I mean, it would have been different. We all have a different decision if we were going to be Magneto or Professor at that time. But I think it was very telling how Professor was like, your mom should let you die. After you kill him, your mom should let you die. How your mom should let you die, man? Like, after, like, damn, you know it's bad. Professor's like, yeah, you deserve to die, bro. Like, Professor's like, yeah, F everything right now. You killed my best friend. Your mom should have banned you.
The betrayal.
It's so brutal. I mean, I will say, like, that whole, I think, like, two things. I felt like for Magneto, he was really trying to sort of have like a redemption moment of like being like, you know, that he was trying both in trying to see like, can I save Apocalypse, and then once he realized too far gone, like, I'm gonna sacrifice myself for the X-Men. And like, you think about how far this character has gone, and he even says that, like, you know, to Charles, like I'm gonna do this, you know, let me do, you know, like let me have this to like sort of make right the sins of the past, or and then for like Apocalypse, well, to kill Magneto, and then to be so cruel and like use Charles's words against him, as I mean, and when he's like about to, what does he say? I don't want to mess up the line, but like something about like only the ant line.
Like something about like you don't feel powerful killing an ant or something.
Yeah,
like that.
And it was like so. It was so like just the dagger.
X-Men has so many great codes.
Crying.
Sorry to cut you off, Lily.
No, that's okay. It's okay. I was just crying. And I was crying. I'm like, oh my god, that was an episode. But
yeah.
But he was also somebody that was I want to talk about his Apocalypse. He was somebody that was damaged, like he couldn't trust anyone, and that was what was revealed at the end when the person said, like, well, they're lying about everything, and like their lie wasn't a bad lie. It was just that they were lying in general to save face, and so that he didn't turn into who he was going to become. And it was almost like it was fate that he was going to become who he was going to become no matter what. And it was interesting because from Professor X perspective, he was like walking on eggshells, like, because he was like, I know what he's gonna become, and everybody knows it. Like, we need to kind of end this now. And Magneto, as everybody was mentioning, he's more so just like, no, we could try to change him. We could and he almost succeeded. He was almost there. And that was what was kind of like, dang, like, you know, there's nothing you can do about it. Because once he got to like that you're lying to me kind of situation, then it was like there was no turning back. And then you know, everything just happened so quickly after that. It was just like, and then for him to be like the first mutant, like, and then the amount of power that he had, it was like all of them couldn't even stop him all at once.
Yeah.
So it's crazy because it's like after they survived the blast, it's like, okay, I'll let you guys speak who you really are. And like everything seemed good, even having that harder conversation with Rogue, which shout out to Rogue, by the way. Even after the harder conversation with Rogue, you're like, okay, this can work. But like you said, Anthony, this was fate, you know, or Peter Magneto, if he's truly dead, I don't know. But, you know, Apocalypse still became Apocalypse, so, and that was sad. And so, like I said, the first 4 episodes were great. It had one theme. Now, 5, 6, and 7. Once again, all good episodes, but like not really like tell the whole theme. So because episode 5, I thought it was pretty well. Before that, the whole post key scene with like Black Widow with Captain America, Wolverine. We have Wolverine leading, the yeah, what were they? What were they? What was that team again called? I'm a X what
Oh
X?
That was the
Oh my
X Force.
no,
no,
it's
not
X Force. Now like the name is his
oh my god! I really
uh,
oh my
It's from X
god! It's
Factor.
not X Factor, but
no,
like
No.
no, it's like the Wolverine,
The
Saber.
Wolverine team.
Weapon X, Weapon X, Weapon
Weapon
X,
Weapon
X. Yes,
Weapon
yes.
X. Yeah, you have Sabretooth. I'm Sabretooth actually. Wolverine's side, Lady Deathstrike, and Morph.
Yes.
Being a writer, die with him right there. Shout out to Morph. Like that was a cool episode, even though like it had nothing to do with, like the whole entire main theme, but like it was basically him getting his claws back, and I love seeing Omega Red in that. But like I said, that episode had like nothing to do with the main point, but like it was still like you said to Anthony's point. It's like the fan service
And
that this season
Yes.
provided right there. The fact that Lady Deathstrike and Saber are actually working together with Wolverine for the time being. I'm like, oh, okay, we can get to this right there. But yeah, he created that fake mission just to get his comments. Like, hey, fuck you guys. I'm just trying to get my cosplay right there. I'm like, oh, okay, Wolverine. I mean, that's a dickhead move right there. But Wolverine's kind of a dickhead. That's what he does. But like I said, pointless episode, still a good episode, especially with the end of the episode where like Morph is like, do you see yourself more than like an animal? Because it makes me sad or whatever like that. I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Morph. I know you love him right now, but it's like he needs his claws. Like, I'm sorry, Morph, but like Wolverine needs an adamantium. You saw in the first episode he wasn't shit without it.
Yeah. Those
Sad.
bones one. I mean, he only had his aggression, which speaks for itself. But you're not Hulk. Your aggression doesn't manifest physically. It's just you're berserker and crazy as shit. Your bone claws are as weak as a bone. So I thought that this duplicitous mission that he put everybody on, which should have been a warning, because I'm just like, all these people scattered to the four winds, all of a sudden we have to band together and do this. I will say I was blindsided. I didn't know the true mission. So when I can't remember who, it was either Sabretooth or Lady Deathstrike that was like, you do realize he tricked us all into being here, and Morph being, like you said, the ride or die that he is. That's my man. I'm gonna stay in Basada. He was like, I get it, because he felt useless. He felt like a de-poisoned snake or a declawed cat. However, the other side is he wouldn't have gotten the team that he did had he told them his true intentions. And I do like the fan service, and I know we keep touching on it, of Lady Deathstrike. She is one of my all-time favorites. I know people have mixed reviews about the X-Men movies. X2, when she was in it, and the nostalgia is like, so forgive me if I start, flustering my words. And even in the 90s, I loved her story. She's not better than Wolverine, but she holds her own, you have to admit. And then even Omega Red was, him and Sinister. Like, Apocalypse is great and everything like that. My all-time two favorite villains were always Sinister and Omega Red. But that episode was interesting because those are the Broods, right? The alien race.
Yeah, the Broods, yeah.
It touches on that because, again, even the X-Men in the past and the X-Men Legends games briefly touches on those. And it was like, we don't need a full arc of more than one episode of it. I do like how they touched on it just enough where you understood. I would have liked
a horror movie.
Right. And I'm like, I would have liked for them to get a little bit more into the where they came from, how did they get here? Like, I think they touched on it a little bit, but considering that we were trying to contain, or they rather, were trying to contain it to one episode so they can move the storyline along. I'm like, okay, I accept it. Not that my, opinion is worth half a cent, but I approve this message, so to speak.
I don't know. I had struggled with episode 5, and there were things I liked about episode 5. I liked seeing Morph and the relationship between him and Logan. I like seeing touches of that. I like sort of like the sci-fi horror element homage that it had. It just felt so jarring after and like I get like kind of wanting to break it up maybe after like the dramaticness that was episode 4, but I kind of wonder like if they took out episode 5 and maybe like they put the Polaris episode there instead, it would have maybe like transitioned a little bit, since you have Charles is still mourning, and then you kind of like bring Polaris in, and like sort of like maybe would have like the storyline would have maybe flowed a little bit better. It just felt like very jarring, and like just I don't know, like it just sort of like threw off the groove of the season for me. And it did serve a point because you need to get his claws back.
Yeah.
But I just like it felt like a little bit, I don't know, it just didn't feel like if the puzzle piece didn't totally fit for me with the rest of the season, the episode. And like I think too, because it was very fan service, which I do appreciate, but like it was sort of like, let's just, for like somebody who's maybe like not as deep into lore, or like would be like, well, who are all these people and like what's going on, and like why are we like being like this, how does this relate to Apocalypse, and like the overarching story, and so like to me it just felt like a little off. Like I don't know like how it could have been resolved, because he did need to get his claws back, but like I don't know, I was like so on the episode, even though there were things that I liked about it.
Yeah. I can agree to a certain. I feel like if you switched the episodes, I do agree that it would have flowed better. Because I am quoted for saying this: 2 things can be right at the same time, right? Yeah. So it was a great episode. It was Wolverine's episode. Yeah. However, if you switched it with the Polaris one, just in totality, everything could have possibly flowed better, because it was a standalone episode, essentially. As long as you didn't put it to the end, where it's like, how is Wolverine fighting with metal claws when you didn't see how he got them back? I feel like the swap that you recommended would have been a good one.
Chris, you're right about that. Because now I'm thinking about it, because episode 6 did start with like Xavier living through that memory of Magneto dying over and over and over again. That would have hurt right there. Episode 5 being Polaris, and episode 6 being Wolverine. Now that I think about that's how it all started. Episode 6. Oh, by the way, Anthony, you want to say quick thoughts about episode 5? Sorry about that.
No. Okay. What everybody was saying with the fandom part, I think with the Team Weapon X, like it was kind of cool just to see the interaction, especially with Sabretooth, because Sabretooth was one of those iconic characters, way back when you had the Fox, X-Men back in the day, when it's like him and Wolverine's like relationship, but then how they were on a team at one point, and how, but like that conflict, or like he was just kind of like an asshole. So it was kind of cool to see that like side of Sabretooth in this one. It kind of gave you like, oh, like this is cool.
Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but I was just saying like it did seem like it was a bit, I'm not saying like it was a bit of a mess, because it was like you said, like if you would have switched those episodes, it would have made it run a little smoother. But like it was like the beginning of the episode too, when they're like flying and like the plane crashes, and what was the character that died like right away?
Was it Maverick or Kane or
yeah?
It's like bye guy.
Yeah, that's why you're like, oh wow, like okay, this is how this is starting off already. But it seemed like a more darker episode, honestly, because quite a few people like got wiped out in that episode.
Yeah. That's what I'm like. Even New Mutants, how you feel about it, how you feel. I think the direction that they wanted to take that in would have been amazing. I am biased because I am a psychological thriller horror fan. So I'm glad this episode touched on the potential of what that could be, exposing us to like, hey, it's not cookie cutter. Like I said, copy and paste has never been my thing. Drag and drop has never been my thing. But you exercise that muscle of I feel like it's different viewpoints, honestly. Like taking points, someone who is not as knowledgeable, as intelligent, and I'm going to touch on my Resident Evil. The new thing that's coming out, it's from a average Joe's perspective, not, oh, I'm military trained, I know how to deal with this, and I'm just adapting to the situation. I'm a Joe Schmo, just, living my life, and then all of a sudden this crazy thing happens. But it's also, I'm going to give a random shout out to Morph and all of his adaptations, because he was someone that didn't get, very much like Jubilee, he didn't get the shine that he deserved in the first one. It was like he died on a random ass mission, and then all of a sudden he's back for revenge because he felt like he was left behind. It's like, well, where
Sinister
the fuck
kind of
from?
worked his mind and everything.
Right. And it was again, I was a child, so forgive me. But it seemed like just out of nowhere. It was like, hey, we're gonna bring this random character back from the first episode or two, and now he's evil because of plot. And I noticed for a fact, like cartoons back then, like Spider-Man and X-Men and stuff like that, before corporations became what they were a little more lenient of, okay, I'll lend my character to you for an episode. Cap can randomly pop up in an episode, or, you know, you can see Spider-Man team up with the X-Men, and that is one of the comics I did have where I believe Cloak and Dagger teams up with Runaways, and I think there was a comic that I had where Storm and Spider-Man and Rogue kind of like cross paths. I forgot why specifically, because like I said, I don't read the comics often, but it was interesting. Unfortunately, because companies are what they are now, is like, hey, I have a hefty fine, don't you dare touch my character, and I want this absurd, crazy amount of money if the name is even mentioned. You know, unfortunately, but fortunately, everything is owned by Disney now, so they have a little bit more leeway, and I feel like it's similar to music. Like if you use up to a certain amount, if it's an inspiration, it's one thing, versus if it's a carbon copy, or if you use a certain extent of it, then you probably have to pay some rights or something like that. And I feel like Morph is literally the perfect Play-Doh or mold or Ditto if you're a Pokemon fan for this instance, where he can flash a character in long enough where it serves the purpose of what we used to be able to do back then. And I say we as in the companies, but not so much where it's like, all right, now we're paying out the wazoo, like fees left and right for a 30-second clip for him. Like he serves that purpose well. So it's the fact that he can do that, and the fact that he's getting more clout for what his abilities are, I feel like are amazing.
I mean, a lot of characters that didn't have much time in original have been having better time. Like Bishop's having more time in this season than he did in the original. Well, yeah, Forge, yeah.
Polaris.
And like I said, Polaris, like bring it there right now, because she was only in one episode in the original one, and it made a cameo appearance. But this one, you know, once again, nothing to do with the main topic, but like I was still happy to see her return, actually have a moment right there, because, and then you actually have the Danger Room transform into actual danger. Once again, fandom, that's not the reason, but like still no point. But like I thought it was a very great episode of her returning back to the home that she's been through. And you know, Lily, I saw your post on Polaris on Instagram right there. It's like, so excited to see Polaris come back.
I'm
right
so
there.
happy.
Yeah.
It's so great to see Polaris. You know, like more people like learning who she is, and I think she's such a great and interesting character. I mean, just given like she's the daughter of Magneto, and she's had sort of different journeys in terms of like sometimes being like an anti-hero to being a hero, and I think she's just like a really great character. And so I love seeing her really get like the chance to shine, and like actually like when she showed up in like the title the opening credits, and like there's Polaris as an X-Men, I was like, yes, finally. So I think they did a really good job with her this season, so I was really happy.
Especially with her and especially with her and Xavier working together to defeat Danger. Sorry.
No, you're perfectly fine. 2 quick notes, and then I don't want to take too much of the time. But I love the fact that she was not just able to explore, but that we were able to see she's more than just Magneto Jr., in spite of what the humans or mortals or insert whatever Homo sapiens are. It's like she has her own skill set and ability. And although there are similarities, she's her own individual person. Her ideologies are different from her father's. It's not just a carbon copy, because once again, I can't stand that, because if like we're just going to reskin a character, then just call them a reskin. And exactly. And she was like, this is my own individual thing. And then the second thing is, it always cracks me up when there's a physical danger and Professor X is in the middle of it. Because I'm just like, no offense, and I don't mean to offend anybody. Yes, he's the greatest, telepath in the world and XYZ, and give him all his accolades. But at the end of the day, if he didn't have his little rockets to catch Cerebra, was that the name of the or X, whatever the name of the machine was? if he didn't have those to catch it off guard, and then even then, now you're out of your wheelchair, you have no mobility, and it was like, quick, I need help. It was like the life alert button of like elderly people.
Oh, those commercials. Help me, I'm on the ground. I can't get up.
Like, for the love of God, please, somebody. I always found.
Why you gotta do that to him right there, bro? Why you gotta do that to Professor, dude?
Because it was like she was a machine, and it prompted an interesting problem, which, you know, honest opinion, like if he didn't have anyone to help him out of that, we would no longer have Professor X. I know there are some comics where he's done like a mind transference thing. I won't even get into that. But it was like at the end of that physical body, you may be able to transfer to something else, but that physical body was going to die because she is mechanical. She doesn't have a mind for you to like control or manipulate the way Scarlet Witch does, which is also one of my favorites. Random tangent about me. Is like if she decides something, that's it, and you're not fucking with her mind to change it. You're not giving her any visual illusions. You're not, you know, having a battle of the minds, as you know he likes to say so much when he's physically overpowered. He's like, "Oh, let's take this to the minds." I feel like that's a handicap, pun intended. You know, yeah, we get it. You're the greatest telepath in the world, and that's why you're going to always want to fight in the minds. But let's be real. You're not taking on a Wolverine physically. Like the prowess alone, like you're done for.
For real. And any thoughts on episode 6?
Yeah, no, that was interesting. Seeing like the Cerebro kind of like take over, and it was like interesting because it's like they have all these other problems, and then they're in their training. And then next thing you know, like the computer is like taking over the system, and like, you know, is like actually becoming a threat. So it's like you got one thing that you got to worry about, and you got to worry about another. And so it was interesting. So me personally, how I took it was like just like the growing of like today's society of AI, and like, you know, that, you know, and I know I'm getting into something like crazy deep right now, but
I'm going to piggyback off that in a second.
Yeah, but it's just kind of interesting to see her like, you know, be kind of like untouchable because she studied all of them for so long and could adapt to their powers. So it was kind of like she was almost like unbeatable until Polaris was able to tap into like, you know, her potential powers, because other than that, like they had no shot.
Unless they found a random mutant that they didn't know about that could catch them off guard. And I'm going to touch on like personal experience and then bring it back to the MCU. You know, with updating of technology and everything like that, I will admit I'm like a boomer. I'm hesitant. I drag my feet. I'm like, camera? What camera? You know, I need a physical card. I'm not putting a digital card. What do you mean phone tap? Pull out your wallet. So it's interesting to see, like, again, the real life applications of the adaptations and when is it helpful, when is it not. Like I always quote, like, smart technology is smart till it's not. Or anytime I get in these bouts of like, you know, just do this and just do that. I'm like, clearly you have not seen iRobot, and clearly you don't know about Skynet from Terminator.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, I refuse to have a part in it. Now to bring it back to the MCU, it very much reminds me of Ultron, one of, you know, our big baddies, BBEG, whatever you want to call it, from Avengers. It was like he, once again, touching back to what I said earlier, was constructed from good intentions, right? It was like, so that way we could save more people, do more. We wouldn't have to be everywhere all at once situation. Unfortunately, with this process, you're giving something a human or even animal ability to learn, to adapt. And it's unfortunate that AI, like Anthony said, does this quicker than we can. If we want to touch on like the two machines that were so advanced, they created a language of their own in which we didn't understand. If you want to touch on, you know, them for whatever God reason, giving machines emotion, which I guess would be okay if you weren't purposely abusing them and threatening to like shut them off, or I'm gonna destroy, and then giving them that emotional fear. Like who would want to be in that distress? So I could see how AI or Ultron, like when he attacked Jarvis and essentially took over the whole system, I could see how that could come to be. And I'm like, how are you all the geniuses or scientists or engineers or insert whatever fancy title? How can you not see that? I don't understand. So going back to Cerebra, I feel as though she truly felt as if, okay, if Professor X, my mentor, father, leader, whatever, if he's rehearsing and rehearsing and rehearsing this particular instance, mind you, Professor X, you're a telepath. You could have just as easily did this in your own mind. You didn't have to bring Cerebro into it. You knew nothing was going to change. You knew Magneto was gone. You couldn't change the past, in theory. Why are you harping on it? In the danger room. It's not called the emotion room. It's not called the therapeutic outlet. It is called the danger room.
That was his therapy, though.
Yeah. I mean, but again, he can do it in his mind. He didn't need the danger room, which is why she was like, you know what? I see the problem. It's all humans in general. And and this is why I'm going to become, not omniscient, what's the word? Sentient. I'm going to become sentient, and I'm going to help you all by destroying you all. All because Charles was, filling in his emotions about his lover.
Let me get together with Ultron right now. Let's become best friends. Hey, you're my father right now, Ultron. I'm your long lost daughter.
You walk so I could run.
Exactly. So it's an overall good episode. Didn't really need it. And then we have the next episode where we have Garrison Creed on trial, which Magic died at the beginning of the episode. I'm like, oh, so Magic's dying right now too? Like, how are y'all killing off right now? Like, and especially Magic being really popular right now due to Marvel Rivals. Now you saw Marvel Tokon. Like, Magic's on the run right now, which I'm very happy for because some people don't know that's Colossus' sister. And so, but I did thought the episode was very interesting because it was a trial. Like, it was cool to see the acolytes. It was what's the guy's name? Extos. Can't remember his name right, but
Exodus or Exodus, something like that.
Exodus right there. It was cool to see him, and like, I don't mean to be political, but I like how X-Men relates so much to the real world because the episode we see like no muties, which we all know who that's kind of a reference, but we won't get into that right now.
Friends of Humanity.
yeah. And so no, Garrison Creed's a fucking dickhead, and you can never make me hate Nightcrawler. You never can. But to have him put on trial and have, Colossus being the given the grand decision at the end of the day, and Nightcrawler says, you hate both your parents. You need to let that hate go because, yes, Mystique was your mom, Sabretooth was your father. He's probably more mad at the fact that he didn't get any powers, probably, because it's like, hey, my parents are mutants. I didn't get shit. Now I get no shit right there. I'm gonna hate all mutants. I'm gonna hate all mankind.
Yeah, similar to Petunia from Harry Potter. The reason she truly hated her sister in the Wizarding world was not because she was insert whatever a magic user racist slur is, but it was the fact that she couldn't partake. She didn't have the ability to cast spells and go to a magical school and live this fairy tale life. That is the reason she mistreated Harry Potter. So, but I'm sorry, continue.
Yeah, no, you're right. But you know what's bad when it's like even Nightcrawler lost faith. Like I'm just gonna live here in the snow because even though Colossus never made a decision, I felt it was gonna be no. He didn't persuade me enough to I have it was gonna be no because he did say you didn't persuade me into leaving this guy to be not guilty. But so no.
He said at the end of the episode.
What's up?
He said at the end of the episode that he still was gonna say that he was guilty.
Yeah. Sorry, my bad. Sorry, my bad about that. I might have said, he was still gonna be guilty. My bad on that. But no, it's bad when Nightcrawler leaves you out and said like, hey, I'm out. Fuck you. You're terrible being. You lost. Because honestly, man, like, it's so hard because it's like I'm not a guy that should say whether you should live or you should die. But it's like, you. I don't believe you should be living right now. F you, man.
I like the fact that Colossus, you can say, but based off, like Anthony said at the end of the episode, his mind was like pretty made up or whatever the case may be. But I would play devil's advocate and even say he legit tried to give him a fair trial because he was like, oh, you killed my sister. I'm going to kill you right now. Yeah. He heard Nightcrawler's plea and he was like, you know what? We'll see what happens. No promises, but we'll see what happens. And then, not saying that it would have changed one thing or the other. But had Creed not shown his true colors, which we all knew to be because he's a POS. Just maybe Colossus would have been swayed, or maybe someone else would have been willing to interject, or whatever the case may be. But because you revealed yourself as not just the murderer of my sister, but someone who is willing to go above and beyond for the destruction of my kind, for the sake of that is what your will is. I was very much on the side of Colossus in that instance. As the oldest sibling of 9, I would find it very difficult to give someone a trial of, the murdering of a sibling. And I cannot say I would have the strength to that Colossus did. I'm ending this now. And whatever happens after, happens after. I'm not giving a trial. It is a waste of my time. I'm not even entertaining this idea. What are we doing?
Speak on that.
And I feel like Colossus, like, you know what? I'm going to hear it out. Maybe my judgment is biased or clouded, and it just so happened that his decision that he reached was like he was still going to die. Like, this is one of the debates that one of my friends have oftentimes. It's like they feel unheard by me because at the end of the day, I'm going to do what I want to do, which everybody to an extent should live their lives. However, it doesn't mean that I'm not listening to you, that I'm not taking your idea into consideration. It's just that for sometimes in some instances, I still feel as though, or I still see that my option is the better option for me. Everybody's lives are different. Everybody's situations are different. So don't see it as, I didn't hear you out. Like if I'm honestly stopping, taking a beat, giving the time and the energy to listen to you, hear you out, have this conversation, which is I feel like where Colossus was with this. I am legit listening to you. I am trying to be understanding and empathetic of where you're coming from. Does not mean that at the end of the day, the decision isn't mine, which is why he served that role of, judge, jury, executioner. Because he was like, no, like he didn't say, I was going to kill him anyway. I was just, buying time or hearing you out. He was like, no, I wasn't swayed. And that's okay. It's okay to hear somebody out and still go with your idea or still go in a different direction, which I feel as though some people get irritated because everybody's right in their own mind. It's like, I am right. How can you not see that this is the best solution? This is this. You may see it from the outside looking in, but you're not living in it. You don't have the same emotion or whatever the case may be. So whether initially his thing to kill him was not selfish. What's the word I'm looking for? I'll use the word selfish for lack of better terms. Whether it was selfish or not, he did take the beat to try to see, like, have everything unfolded in front of him. It just so happened that after all that, like I said, 2 things happened at once. He showed who he truly was, and then his decision was made. But I'm sorry, Anthony, Lily, you wanted to chime in?
Fuck Creed.
Yes.
I'll say the thing that I really liked, which is the opposite of what I generally like, because usually I like things like things aren't black and white, there's gray. But I liked with Creed that they didn't make him like have an aha moment or a redemption moment. Like, no, he was like, he's a bad dude, he never changes. Like Nightcrawler does not succeed in like getting him to like have a change of heart. Like, no, like this guy was a POS, remains a POS, and will always be a POS. Like there was nothing that could be said, and I think that that's actually like important for a lot of reasons, that there are just certain people out there that are unfortunately like that, and they're like, and that's who they are, and they're not going to change. And so, and I also like for like Nightcrawler.
Oh gosh, I had the wrong name.
Nightcrawler, he similarly though is almost like so, but like in a positive way, the core of who he is also never going to change. So like no matter how bad another person is, like he will always look for the good, will always like look for like what can we find as redeeming. And even if I can't find something that's redeeming, like he's not going to call for like the execution of someone, although he did leave from this though. I think I'm assuming he like knew that someone would come for him. But like that he is so like his beliefs and like who he is at the core is like unchanging, and like it's almost like they're like yin and yang, and they're like the type of people that they ended up being. Like one person can be so good and the other can be like such like an evil person, more evil in a way than like Apocalypse, even, because like at least you could see like where Apocalypse came from. Like I guess you can see,
I see what you're saying. They're both evil in a way, but it's like Apocalypse, what he went through in his past. You kind of see why he's doing the things he's doing.
yeah,
Whereas Creed, it's like Creed, you're just heartless.
yeah, like I can have some empathy. No, I don't know, some understanding. I know empathy is not the right word. Some understanding or like explanation for the fact that like he had Sabretooth and Mystique as his parents. But like then that still comes probably like from a selfish place, like has been said, that like he's just maybe upset that he didn't get powers too, and like I guess he had like a very like tough upbringing in a way, but he's just still there's like no moment of like we see like in the flashbacks with, or like in the flashbacks episode 3 and 4 with Apocalypse, like there is still some at least at that point like some thought process and like with his relationship or conversations with Magneto, and like I don't know. I guess I just hate Creed.
I think we all hate Creed.
He's just such a bad guy, and I love that they didn't like you thought like maybe they were gonna like redeem him or like give him like a moment of like reflection. I'm glad they just like held out and like he's like, no, this guy's like always just gonna be who he is. And the only other thing I wanted to just add, which is completely unrelated to this conversation, but which you see in episode 6 and in episode 7, I really liked that they started to explore like the dynamic between Polaris and Bishop, and where that like I'm hopeful like that we see in season 3 because Polaris like in the comics she's like been often paired with like Havoc and stuff, but like I just think I like the direction of that, and I like how the chemistry of those characters and the personalities of those characters, and I'm like hopeful to see like maybe how that will be explored, because I think that could really end up being like a very interesting like relationship and dynamic.
They're teasing that. They definitely are. They definitely are. Especially of how they started now. That let's not be too fast. That ending image of them.
Yes, like, I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Yeah, but Anthony, you better hate Creed too, though.
Blanket.
Yeah. That's a date right there to me.
I know.
That's there right there. But yeah,
just like they show the relationship, and they're like hitting it off in that episode. You kind of see like how that's going to start to grow into a relationship, and that's how the old episode or the old TV show used to be, where you had like certain interests that kind of developed in certain episodes or between two characters. So it's interesting to see that. But I did like that they did go back to kind of like the core of like the X-Men when it comes to like bigotry and like hate that people have for mutants, and like with the character Creed and his like distaste for mutants and like evaporate them as as far as like wiping them off the face of the earth kind of thing, like there's a scourge of the earth, and that hate that he has, you kind of feel it, and it's like wow, like and then for him to be like to have like this fair trial amongst all mutants, like in the center of like a place where like you have no escape from like like your demise kind of thing. It was like interesting to see this one mutant be the only one to kind of stand up for him and kind of give him a fair shot in Nightcrawler, because Nightcrawler is that character that like everyone's saying, like wants to show that a person can be redeemed, that like their ugliness comes from something, and like to get to the core of like why they became who they were, and for everyone to kind of see why this person has this opinion or why they became like this hateful person. And it was kind of interesting to see and like have them reveal like why he kind of became who he was, and like at the end like you were kind of thinking that like maybe Colossus might have a heart and that might say you do have a point. But it was good that I thought it was like kind of interesting that they did that. But then at the end, when he was like, "What would you have done? What would have been your verdict?" and he pretty much was like, yeah, I wouldn't have saw that he was redeemable at all. Like, and it would, and because I think like his pain, and that was interesting to see like Colossus's like mourning over his sister, because they don't really show that much. Magic being like a really popular character, like you were saying, she's actually one of my favorites too. And I was like, when they showed her in New Mutants, right? I was like, this is cool. Like, in the way that I was like, when are they going to give her own movie? But because of like just that world and like how she, the character that she is, like that would make like a really cool movie. But whatever, I digress from that. But but it was just kind of like interesting to see that relationship and them kind of mentioning that Colossus, just from him being like such another popular character, to know that that was his sister and that how she died in this series.
I would say too, like it's interesting because Creed's hate ran so deep that even in the face of this trial, like he couldn't even hide it. Like even like his life is on the line, right? Like like just lie, and he couldn't even lie because his hate was so like deep, that he just like really was like an unredeemable person. Like he couldn't overcome it. Even to save himself, he couldn't overcome his hate.
I
And
guess
even
he's
like when they
keeping
show like
it real, I guess.
even between like Colossus and Polaris, when they're teaming up with these other individuals outside of the X-Men, to see them kind of have like a like I'm lost for a moment, and then when like the team members show up, they kind of help them realize, hey, you served a better purpose than this. Like you're better than this, and they kind of like have that wake up call of like, I need to get back on the right track. And then, because he even saw that like that trial was like, like that their hate has like stemmed up so much that they're just willing to just kill them off and even fight other mutants at that point.
Even
Like,
before the trial started, my bad.
No, go ahead.
No, even before the trial, there's like, why are we here? Like, what's the point of all this? On some news that we're saying that, I'm like, yeah, I kind of agree with y'all right there. Just want to add that to you. Sorry about that.
Also, random Knuckles, I think you and I have the same chair. It's just you have the blue one.
Yeah, I got the blue one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Twins.
Great minds.
No. But no, like I said, I just thought it was a different approach because, like, let's have it in trial. I mean, there were still some good fights in because Nightcrawler going to toe of Exodus, sword to sword, that was actually pretty good. I'm like, Nightcrawler is finding a very powerful mutant by using swords. Like, shout out to Nightcrawler because that ain't no easy fight. That was a cool fight. But now I guess we get to the end of the season with Apocalypse using Gambit as his new host, and episode 7 was just basically trying to save Gambit from Apocalypse because, as I said, Apocalypse has a new body and everything, and so it was cool seeing Gambit back, but it wasn't actually really Gambit. And if it's one thing this season has shown me, and we all know this as well too, you can never ever test Gambit's and Rogue's love for one another. Like, Rogue was still willing to marry a guy that's not really him, that's not really Gambit, but still wanted to marry him this time. And I'm like, yo, Rogue, you are ride or die. Like, you even marry a guy that's like not him. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, Rogue, do you think, girl? Like, yeah. But no, like, I really, even though it wasn't really Gambit, I'm like, damn, bro, you really love this guy. But even when, okay, somebody gotta explain this to me right there. And once again, we're on Nightcrawler. We love Nightcrawler. But how in the world does X-Men and the X-Force make Nightcrawler look like an Omega 11 mutant when he's like, he was whooping their ass, teleported, like, pretty much not that everyone out. I'm like, how is Nightcrawler doing all of this? Like, he is whooping all your asses. Like, I love Nightcrawler, but it's like, he's making y'all look so weak right now. Just like teleport, knockout, teleport, knockout, teleport, knockout, teleport. I'm like, God damn, Nightcrawler, holy shit! Like, the fans are loving this right now. This is Nightcrawler fans. We love him. I'm like, damn. I know he ain't that strong right now, but god damn.
As a thorough Nightcrawler fan, I will say, for me, it's a little bit different from like being a speedster like Quicksilver, because you have telepaths like Jean Grey or Professor X who could kind of read his mind, or at least see where he's coming from, or even like if Jean Grey, like for instance, X-Men Evolution is one of my favorite renditions, when he was like just speeding around like a lunatic, and she was like, oh, if I just lift you off the ground, you don't have any friction, you can't hold on to anything. I was like, I feel like it's a little bit easier to read a speedster than someone who teleports, because even if you get into his lore, it's not just popping from one place to another. I think he traverses a different dimension and then appears. And again, this is purely speculation on my end. Maybe it's a little bit difficult to predict his moves because if you're a human, he's catching you off guard no matter which way. You're just going to get your ass kicked. Secondly, even if you have the luxury of being a telepath, my assumption is when he leaves this plane or dimension or whatever you want to call it, you can't read him because he's not there. And then all of a sudden he reappears on your side or reappears. And it's not like, you have a second or two, like 5 second delay or anything to react. Like he is very much a hand-to-hand combat in your face. Versus if you see me throw a punch this way, you see, all right, it's a punch coming in or it's a kick coming in. It's like you see him and the next thing you know, you're punched. You see him and the next thing you know, you're kicked, which is why I believe it kind of plays onto his power set. And, maybe it's one of those things that I need to delve deeper into, like specifically, like we know he's a teleporter, but how does his teleportation work? Like we know until he scales up, he has to see where he's teleporting versus Blink, again, another X-Men Legends character who I would have loved to see a little bit more of. And she was in, I think it was Days of Future Past, quote me if I'm wrong, which could literally just blink to the moon. Like obviously she doesn't see on the moon specifically, but she could create portals. Well, portals, which, is different than teleportation, but not at the same time. That's a whole different thing. But to reel it all in, I feel as though it's like he was kicking ass because he does have that ability. It's like if you're a human or if you don't have the ability to calculate or predict, like if you're not a chess player, you're a checkers player, you're going to kind of get screwed. Like in the end, he moves too fast, and it's not a speedster fast. It is an ability to catch you off guard from all different angles versus a speedster. Let's say, you hear them whizzing by you or your ear, you hear wind or whatever. You're like, all right, they just went past. They're probably about to attack from behind. Or, they're coming from my side. So more than likely I'm about to get side attacked. Nightcrawler is up, down, diagonal, sideways. Like it's more difficult, I feel like, to predict his movement and skill set. And then you just throw the swords in it rather than regular punches and kicks. And you're in trouble because as someone who's obsessed with like samurai and Japanese lore and everything like that, sometimes one single sword slash is all it takes. If they cut your head off, if they stab a vital organ. So it's like trying to predict, it's a whole bunch of variables with him, I'll say. He brings a bunch of variables to the playing field that I do like.
Am I follow with that? That's not, but I guess to your point right there, but also I will also say this. When he knocked out everybody, Professor did like get into Gambit's mind, and once again, the power of the minds, he did have a little bit of advantage, but Apocalypse was still there. Like it was cool seeing, the Gambit's, astral projection coming out of his body. But once again, even though Professor lost that fight, I say this again, Rogue's love for Gambit. Rogue not having any power to minds at all, being in there to save Gambit right there. I'm like, yo, I needed me a ride or die like Rogue right there. Like how the hell she got there? Listen, not having any telepathic powers right there, got into the power of the minds that actually helped Gambit, because without Rogue, who knows what would happen to the Professor right there? Professor might have died for all I know. Who knows? But no, I gotta give a shout out to Rogue for coming in and making that time to save Gambit for the meantime, because Apocalypse is still inside him, and they had to say, hey, Nathan, Cable, we love you, but fuck you, you ain't killing our guy. You ain't killing our that's still our value. You ain't killed him. And it's like, Archangel, I understand you've been possessed, but you should know this shit, bro. Like, why are you gonna let Cable want to kill Gambit? You should know about this shit, but that's not
There's
here
a
or there for you,
possibility of
unfortunately.
redemption.
Yeah, possibly. But no, shout out to her once again for saving Gambit. 'Cause I don't know how she did it.
Especially considering Archangel had a choice and chose it depending on which lore you follow, versus Gambit died and then was brought back to life as this. He didn't necessarily have the choice or the option. But I'm sorry, Lily, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I would have really liked episode 8 to be like 2 episodes as opposed to 1.
Oh,
just
absolutely.
to allow the story to unfold, because I feel like things just didn't get to settle enough. So like the emotional beats, they hit. I felt like they could have hit a little bit stronger if we weren't like kind of. I felt like we were speeding through like Gambit's back, but he's but he's really possessed by Apocalypse and like Rogue, like seeing Gambit for the first time, but then all of a sudden like everybody's fighting, and then Xavier's and Gambit's mind, and then he's back to being Gambit, kind of, with like Apocalypse. Like it just went very fast.
It was a
I
lot.
think with like 2 episodes, it would have probably like helped with the pacing, and so that we could have like the emotional moments, because I think we were all waiting for like the reunion of Gambit and Rogue, and I think it would have hit that much harder if it wasn't just done at such like it was just like
light speed.
It was so light speed, right? Like
Yeah.
the whole thing just like sped through, and like even like her having to sit with and deal with the emotion of like, well, he's back, but it's not really like Gambit in the same way, and like how am I like and he's like been taken over by Apocalypse, and like how am I going to deal with this, and like just all of that stuff. I think could have just, if I just had to like sit a little bit, if we had to sit with it a little bit longer, because we were just waiting for it so long, right? We were waiting for it since season 1, and so it just like felt very fast. So that was like the thing. Like if that was 2 parts, and I think even like episode 9, like if they made it like a 4-parter or something, as opposed
Should have been,
to,
honestly.
then it could have just, I think, breathed a little bit the story.
Now, right here, well, Anthony is a huge Gambit fan, so I know. How did you feel about how Gambit was portrayed in these like last episodes? Because I know you were heartbroken when he died in the last season.
So I have I'm a complete and utter Gambit fan. And so like when the last season 1 ended, it was kind of like, man, like how they gonna do my boy like that? But it was also like how he went out was like, so heroic that you're just kind of like, but it also like just how powerful Gambit is as well. Like, and that's why I like, because when you watch like the old TV shows and things, and he's just like that, cool character with the cards, Cajun accent, from New Orleans, but you don't really, and it was like him and Wolverine were always like those 2 characters that like kind of like when you needed somebody to step up, they were always the ones to do it. So when it came to this season, like it was kind of interesting to see like him taken over by Apocalypse and like seeing like a dark side of him, because you're like, oh, that's not really him though, like, so
Yeah.
I think I was kind of like taken back on that side of things, and just how his powers were amplified, and like it was like there's not really much people could do, and it was like the only thing that could probably save him was obviously Rogue's love for him, and that she was going to tap into him from the inside. So it was I thought it was like Lily was saying that it was like really rushed, like it was really a quick episode. Like both of the episodes, I feel like this kind of conclusiveness of it all like kind of seemed a little sped up, and it would have been nice to see it kind of like develop a little bit more. Even like when he goes back and he rounds up the crew, and he kind of like possesses them as well. It just seemed like that whole like fight and that whole sequence was just like, really fast. So like like you said, like the part of like the development side, I thought they could have kind of slowed down on.
And not only that, it didn't feel truly like Apocalypse. Like he's taking over Gambit. All right, cool. Like
Yeah.
I no horseman in this time. Just hey, I'm taking over again. Which, by the way, like that's gonna be a cool cosplay for New York Comic Con to see Gambit possessed as Apocalypse. That'd be really dope. And I better see a Rogue cosplay near Comic Con and like this. We're gonna call it Sparkle Rogue,
Like,
Goddess Rogue. Like I'm sure we're gonna see that at New York Comic
I
Con
hope
this year.
so.
If I do not see that this year, I will be shocked. But no, she looked amazing. And once again, I know we're going to overplace right now, but just the whole Gambit Apocalypse just felt like anticlimactic to me. Especially like I said, there were no horsemen. It was just him. That didn't truly feel like Apollo. Just like, hey, Apollo just cosplaying as Gambit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it just did not look good. And seeing I'm very happy that Rogue was the one to save Gambit. I just feel it was rightfully so. But
No one else.
we all knew she was gonna sacrifice herself, but turned out to be Nightcrawler instead. And like I had tears in my eyes because the way how it hit, I'm just like, God damn. But I'm not gonna lie. When we talk about pacing, it just hey, Nightcrawler sacrificed himself. Everyone's happy. Credits. It's over. I'm like, no funeral, no remorse. It's like, hey guys, Nightcrawler died. We're all happy now. I'm like,
Yeah.
like what? Yo, he just died. Like, why are we just skipping all over this? Right? I'm like, yo, like that is a Nightcrawler thing to do. That is something Nightcrawler would do. I think we all agree to that. But it's like the pace. It's like, hey, Nightcrawler's died. Hey, we're all happy. Credit scene.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
I want to piggyback off. I want to piggyback off that as well a little bit. Like for instance, when we did have the death of Gambit in the first one, we immediately saw the ramifications. We immediately saw Rogue like going through her grief. We immediately saw the team like become, opposite sides of the fence. And Rogue, when she dropped what's his name? I want to say Bastion, but I know it's not, so forgive me. When she decided, no, fuck you, and I'm gonna drop you off this roof.
Yeah.
And like all the things built up to that versus Nightcrawler being sped over it. And again, like backing up to what I was saying earlier, and same as Anthony and same as Lily, it was like there wasn't much time. Like even with that hazy, weird pacing in like 5, 6, like whatever those 2-3 episodes we discussed, 7 and 8 should have been broken up. If you think about Avatar: The Last Airbender, that final fight was like 4 or 5 episodes. If you think of the Dark Phoenix saga from the original, that was 4 or 5 episodes. If you think about X-Men Evolution, when the whole build up to how, all the sneakiness was coming around, you didn't know what. And then it was the reveal of what the sneakiness was building up to, Apocalypse. And then, which honorable mention, like you said, Knuckles, I was like, I wish we would have had Horsemen rather than Gambit's, posse, but I'll get into that in a second. Even that itself was 4 or 5 episodes. The team had to split into like 3 parts, go to different parts of the world. And like, it felt more cohesive. It felt like it flew well together. It felt like time was spent, and it felt like there was an actual risk or reward situation. We have such a buildup that if this does not pay off, we're up shit's creek without a paddle. Versus these 2 episodes, unfortunately, I'm gonna call them part 1 and part 2. So before the season finale, yes, he's taken over Gambit. He's back. I love the concept of horsemen, like famine, death, and for whatever reason, war, and I can't remember the third one. Plague, if I'm not mistaken. But at any rate, I love the concept of that. I love how each rendition of X-Men, it was someone different. Like for Evolution, and again, I'm going to quote it because it's one of my favorite renditions. It was Mystique, it was Storm, it was
Professor and Magneto.
And Magneto. There you go. And the original one, I think it was 4 different, like, not generic, but they weren't like X-Men. It was, Apocalypse people. I found it kind of strange if we're doing this whole Gambit is possessed or reborn or taken over or whatever you want to call it by Apocalypse, and then he goes to like his band of thieves. I would have to rewatch the episode to like get in the specifics of it. But I'm like, similar to all the battles and fight scenes, yeah, they're great fighters. I'm assuming they were great thieves as well. Are they mutants? Like, what were their abilities? Why did he choose them to be a part of the team? Even if you think of Magneto and what he was doing in Evolution, where he would pair them up to fight, and whoever was the best, he would bring them to Asteroid. And like, there was a reason, there was a specific outline of how and or why he was choosing these people, versus just like Gambit brought back to life. I'm gonna go home to Louisiana, New Orleans, or whatever you want to call it, scoop up the old gang, and then we going, like, why didn't he go after, you know, for lack of better saying, more powerful mutants?
Was he what didn't he say Apocalypse lost the Gambit at first or something like it wasn't fully Apocalypse just yet? It was. I must have missed something right there.
I don't know. That's what I was saying. I would have to, like, honestly, that's the truth. My knowledge is limited. I would have to go back and rewatch the episode. I just felt as though two things. One, it was a little bit interesting, I'll say, to see him grab them as opposed to more known to me, especially because even if he's not fully taken over as by Apocalypse yet, Apocalypse is well aware of stronger, more powerful mutants than a band of thieves. And I don't mean to discount the characters, because like I said, I don't know them. I don't know their skill sets. They may be capable of more than I realize. However, we're talking the influence of Apocalypse on Gambit. Apocalypse knows of more powerful mutants. If I am building a all-star, you know, A-team, so to speak, why would I not go after the likes of Mystique or Polaris, or even if you want to play on the confused characters that, you know, operate in the moral gray area?
Wait, Chris, I didn't cut you off right now. I was like, we're almost here on our 2-hour mark. That's why I want to get this over now. I still want to get to like Lily and Anthony's point on that, and then like talk about the original season 2 that was supposed to happen right there.
Okay.
Sorry to cut you right there. Like, I know someone say I'm working more tomorrow morning right there, so I don't want to keep us around too late right there. But I understand your point though. But I just want to get Lily's and Anthony's point across. Then talking about the whole like potential season 2 that was supposed to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I just as I said, I wish it was like at least like 4 episodes as opposed to 2 for the last 2 episodes, just to let everything sort of breathe and unfold. And I also felt like it didn't like allow enough time for certain threads that I felt like had been laid earlier in the season to be fully resolved. Although, you know, maybe some things will end up in season 3, but like certain things that I felt like fit within season 2 just didn't really get an opportunity, and like characters just got like lost or forgotten, like Storm. Like we had some Cyclops and Jean with Nathan. Jubilee finally came back, but like everybody only had like blips because there was just too many characters to really give proper time in the story, because you only had 2 episodes, and so I just think it needed. But that said, I do think that the moment with Nightcrawler did really hit when they have that reveal and he gives that speech. I think was beautiful and had me in tears, almost as emotional as the end of episode 4 with Magneto. But I think it's Anthony said it was like very anticlimactic, just because I think it was just too rushed. If it had a little bit more time, I think it would have. And it's true they didn't do anything. Like they were like, okay, like Nightcrawler sacrificed himself, and we're all just like very happy. Like you would think like they would have at the end of like, you know, speaking of the MCU, like when you know, at the end of with Tony Stark and they have the whole funeral after he dies, and like that's how they end Endgame. And like you would have thought like maybe they could have had like a better moment, but they had no time to have a moment
for Nightcrawler of all people.
You know, like they didn't even have like a time. Like I like the montage of like, you know, seeing that Nightcrawler sacrifice like let them all be happy, but like we could have had that after maybe like a mourning or reflection period. You know, but
it's like, bye, Nightcrawler.
Yeah, it's like thanks for everything.
Yeah, and one of the things I had a big question on was like, well, why did Apocalypse go into Gambit's body to begin with anyway? Like, so that was like one of my things. Like, I didn't understand that aspect of it. It was almost like it was like their way of bringing Gambit back. It was like, in order for Gambit to come back, we need to have this thing where Apocalypse for some reason wants to, immerse inside of his body and like be reborn. And it's like, I don't understand if he was already pretty much in like an alpha skin, like why he would put himself inside of Gambit. And then also too, it was almost like, if you really think about it, like Cable failed like miserably. Like you know what I mean? Like it was like he was like supposed to prevent like Apocalypse from taking over. Like he did not do a very good job. And for his idea that he was gonna like kill Gambit, like and get rid of him, like that wasn't gonna be the answer either. So it was kind of like,
it was his destiny, though.
Yeah, but it was like Rogue's like sacrifice was the reason why, and like that's what we were saying. Like that was so sped up. Like it was like, oh well, you have to, you know, you have to die in order for, if you love him so much, then you give up your life for him. And it was like, well, damn, that's pretty messed up. Like it's almost like it's saying that you would never get your happiness. Pretty much, like you want happiness with him, so then you sacrifice your life for him. That will show me that you truly care for him. So that was like pretty heavy, and it was almost like too, like the defeat of like Apocalypse was just kind of like
lackluster.
Yeah, it was so lackluster. It was just like, oh well, that's it. Like, and then he gets turned into a crystal, and then he gets handed off to Cable. Like I was just like, what is going on? Like, are you not trying to get rid of him or something? So it's like it's going to build up to, obviously he's going to get revived like later on. Like, Cable doesn't seem capable of fulfilling his mission. So I don't know where he's going to take that crystal. Like as far
don't
as
drop it, don't drop it. Everybody escape.
And so like and it was interesting seeing like once that happened, and then Rogue not passing on, and then she began, got her like normal body back, that she realized that, oh, like Nightcrawler must have sacrificed himself. He was that, it was like he is that character though, that was just like, I want everyone else to be good. It's not about me, it's about what is like for the greater good of everything. And so, and it's kind of interesting too, because it's like, even he didn't know that was going to work. Like that, like her sacrifice, like he sacrificed himself. Like it's like the time frame of like when that all happened. I know I'm thinking pretty deep on this, but I'm like,
no, perfect.
But if like if like she didn't succeed, and then he like gave up his life so that she could live, like I don't know. There was like there's a few things in there, but it's like I'm curious as to if they're going to try to bring back Nightcrawler and in what capacity that they try to do that too.
Agreed. And one quick piggyback, and then I know you want to get into the potentials of the third season.
Well, Lily was going to say something too.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lily.
Yeah.
No, you go first.
It'll be quick, I promise. So I would have liked the concept because it seems like we're all in agreement. We love the Four Horsemen. I mean, it's four of us. Go figure. It would have made a little more sense if Apocalypse came back and resurrected Gambit as a horseman, not necessarily possessed him, because then you could expand the story.
That's why that was the original. Like he was supposed to be death. So like
yes,
that would
then you can figure out your other three Apocalypse. It eliminates him randomly getting a random band of thieves. And forgive me, I'm not sliding them, but I am like speeding up as quick as possible because I want everybody to have their chance to speak. It would do so much more in expanding a story that was already in need of more time. I feel like we would have been more appreciative. We would have waited the extra 3-4 weeks, or sometimes shows take the 2-week hiatus and then go back to their week to week to week. It would have set him up as one of the horsemen, and then it could have showed how he goes about picking and choosing the other horsemen, and it would have been more fitting. And then even if we were not necessarily in agreement of the ending, we saw the build up to it and how much effort and time, to the point where it was like, oh, this is a good payoff. Okay, Lily, you go. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I was going to just say, I think what also hurt the end is that Apocalypse was so terrifying in episode 4, and like Gambit Apocalypse just wasn't as terrifying as episode 4. So like it just felt like, and I think Anthony said this, like it just like Gambit as Apocalypse, or Apocalypse possessing Gambit, was just not as intimidating of like a force as. So like if you had like the way Apocalypse was at the end of episode 4, and they were able to overcome that, like I think like it would have felt like a little bit.
It felt like a major power nerf, in my opinion.
Yeah,
There you
yeah,
go.
yeah. That's exactly.
This is the Apocalypse we're talking about.
Yeah.
And not only that, now I look back, it's like, well, damn. I wish Mr. Sinister was here right now because he had him in season 1. It's like Sinister about Apocalypse. It's just like, what are we doing here? Like Sinister is always a bit with Apocalypse, but whatever.
He seemed a bit more of a threat.
Yeah.
And even if y'all did it under the guise of, Apocalypse from the past was not as strong as Apocalypse in the present or his future, I would have gotten that. But it just felt like a major, like, disbelief was not allowed to be suspended, because he took over Gambit, and like all the feats and abilities that Apocalypse have, they were not exactly exhibited. Even in the Battle of the Mind, as Charles likes to call it, I was like, even then, he was still going to kick Charles' ass, and it wasn't.
Yeah, he wasn't the Battle of the Mind champion this season. He really wasn't. He kept on losing in the Battle of the Minds. Kept on losing. Now,
friendship.
Yeah. Now we can all agree that we still liked it, but it could have been better. Like I said, pacing, it was just too much. Like if you were to do like maybe like 10 episodes and then take like a month break, then give us the same season, but just give us like maybe 2-month break or whatever. But I'm not sure how old these things are. They're now reoccurring because a lot of people have not been liking season 2. Now I want to show you guys this real quick before we end the stream. This was interesting to see right here. Can you guys all see this right now?
Yes.
Yes.
Now we all know Beta Maya is not with the team anymore, with things that we're not going to talk about. But apparently, like he was writing parts of season 2, and a lot of it, was changed apparently. So all the information in this thread comes from Bo's own Twitter during 2025. When it was fired, 8 episodes were already ready. According to him, the new showrunner and producers rewrote the scripts to fit a new ending. Of the 9 episodes in the season, Bo's only credited as co-author on 5, and none are his exclusive authorship. This intervention was so severe that some episodes ended up having 4 different writers. So let's merge in the sea, and then let me move over here. Bear's initial idea was to open the season with 3 episodes exploring the past, present, future Apocalypse. However, he had reported some serious conflicts with producer, blah, 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 blah. It gets even better. For development, the middle, the X-Corp, he ended up passing him for 11. For development, the plot, Xavier would have created the X-Corp. The big twist is that Professor would adopt a much more radical militarized stance. He would have moved away from his classic pacifist approach. Basically, becoming, Onslaught. Like originally, Onslaught was supposed to be, the main villain in season, because if you look at season 1, when Magneto took the Ant-Man out of Wolverine and Wolverine into his mind right there, that was kind of like the starting point of Onslaught. But they didn't do that for whatever reason. And another thing, downsizing of Storm. Apparently Storm was gonna be, more in a leadership role in season 2. But that got we all know what happened in season 2 with Storm. It wasn't great. And then this part right here, I thought would have been really crazy. So in the original plan for 9th episode, things would spiral out of control. Bishop would finally discover who the X-Men traitor was. Xavier himself. Xavier would reveal himself to be possessed by an entity massacre formed by the fusion of his dark side with Magneto. The arc would draw from the comics where Xavier is possessed by Cassandra Nova. The result, an epic battle between uniting the X-Men, who would return to wearing their classic hero costumes, Avengers, X-Force, X-Factor against Massacre, during which he would steal Apocalypse's ship, launch an attack on the U.S. During Graydon's Cretan speech. So apparently, Onslaught was the original villain, and then episode 10, allegedly, the battle against Onslaught would end well, and that's what measure Polaris would go back in time to that famous moment, the bar between the youngest and Magneto. She would try to assassinate Magneto to prevent Onslaught from being created in the future. However, the action would go wrong and really result in Xavier's step, adapting the famous Legion Mutant storyline from the comics. So this is all alleged. This is all not 100% true, but allegedly, Onslaught was supposed to be the original villain in season 2, and then it'll be Apocalypse in season 3. Now it's alleged that all sounds cool. Just because it all sounds cool, it still has to be executed. It can still be under the pacing issue because X-Men, Avengers, and X-Force all together to fight Onslaught. That sounds great, but like execution has to be flawless to me for that. So like that's even had to be like maybe like a 20 episodes, maybe.
Yeah, you need a lot more episodes.
That's just way too much. But after reading this, like I said, we don't know how much of it's true, but it's like Storm was barely used. Everything was rushed. You teased Onslaught in season 1. You kind of did because, like I said, you took it. Rovers and they have them claws out. Xavier goes into Magneto's mind, kind of like serving up Onslaught, but we didn't get that. Yeah. So,
but they also previewed that they went into time for the original Apocalypse. So at the end of it, which led into this season. So it's kind of like if they would have did that and then had the whole storyline be about Onslaught, I'd have been like, wait, well, why did y'all put this snippet at the end of this season?
Yeah, right. And I feel like either way, the second season, not problematic, but they would have run into similar issues, right? Very much like Anthony said, if this was to be the preview of Apocalypse and then all of a sudden it's Onslaught, it was like, where the hell did we get for this? However, we saw with this season, certain things we needed more time and more, the characters needed more screen time and there needed to be more exposition. And let's say even hypothetically, we went with the Onslaught issue, a lot of the things in this season were directly tied to Apocalypse, whether it was, them X Factor trying to assassinate, not trying to, but, kidnap and trying to get information for that led into Jubilee's identity and her kind of bringing Polaris back into the folds. And Onslaught still would have needed more time in the season. I feel like the season was too short. I feel like a lot of it, we had an okay grounding, and then we sped up for the sake of meeting a time frame.
Yeah, I mean, that story being contemplated, I think would have the same struggle if they kept like a 9 or even 10 episode framework, because especially like I had said, there were too many characters at the end and they didn't have enough time. If you were like adding the Avengers and all these people, you would have to have, like you said, 20 episodes to do something like that. And I mean, I think like the overarching idea of exploring Apocalypse this season really would have worked. And I think that it was almost there. They just needed like a few more episodes. Like if they just expanded from like 9 to 12 or something like that, I think that would have been sufficient. I don't think it would be bad for them to explore Onslaught like in a future season. But I think it would set up the way that they had left us on a cliffhanger leading into season 2. It made sense to do obviously the Apocalypse storyline. They just needed like more time.
Now the cliffhanger is they show Mystique. So now,
by the way, Easter egg, you saw all those actresses played Mystique. Jennifer Lawrence. That part was great. That was really good.
So good.
That was really good. So now,
it kind of did think certain characters just like disappeared. Like Storm, I felt like disappeared. Forge even in it? Beyond like episode 1, like he disappeared. Jubilee did have like a bit, but she wasn't in it. Even like, I don't know. I felt like season 1 did a better job of featuring all the characters, where it didn't feel like people got lost in the shuffle. And this season, I felt like I was missing like Jean and Cyclops. Like they were there, but they weren't there. Like I just didn't feel like there was enough time.
I'm sorry, Lily.
No, yeah. Like
I was gonna say
so,
Nightcrawler had more screen time because in the original series he didn't have
Mhm.
much screen time in the original '90s. We saw him have a little bit in the second half of season
right.
one, and now more in this. So it's like I
It's
don't know.
true.
To play devil's advocate, is it hard to have like so many characters on
Mhm.
a show to give them screen time? Because it's like it's almost like quantity over quality. It seems like that's X-Men just has so many characters. But you know what? I feel as though the Avengers that animated should kind of a better job have showcasing all these characters, get them all by the way, the anime series, not the live series, but like
Mhm,
the
mhm.
anime series on that was on Disney XD or
Mhm.
whatever. They had a good amount of screen time. Here, it's again, what can you do with 9 to 10 episodes?
Yeah.
Like that's the other problem. Like I'm not an animator. I'm not necessarily tell you I know what to do, but it's like, guys, we kind of need more than 9 to 10 episodes. But I'm not
You
a
know,
creator. I don't work behind the scenes, so I mean, maybe it's not right for me to ask that. But it's like, guys, come on, we're
right.
doing here.
And like Lily said, just 3 additional episodes because based off what we've all agreed on, the last episode definitely needed to be a 2-part. And I think it was one other one where it needed to be a 2-part. And if you wanted to finagle it, you can take a couple minutes here or there, add it to various episodes, and it would have flushed out what you needed to. And let's say hypothetically, in a different dimension or world or whatever, multiverse, so to speak, since that's where we are. Let's say they went with the Onslaught idea. You could have piggybacked the Avengers. I feel like didn't need a whole episode to introduce because we've already established that Captain America is there. You could reintroduce him like a 5 minutes tops thing, like after the events of Genosha, we saw that you were right. I called up the team. Here we are. Boom. The only thing we would have needed more time with is X Force and X Factor. I think were the 2 teams we said
Yeah.
because they are the lesser known characters, which I do appreciate the second season being able to show off more of the unknown characters. Even me myself, I'm like, I've seen this character in various things. I've heard this name, but didn't know who they were. I feel like Avengers wouldn't have needed that, but definitely X Factor and X Force would have still needed the exposition that they got.
Yeah, no. As we can all agree that it needed more. And since we're talking about X-Men, before we head up out of here, what do y'all think about the new casting for X-Men 2020? Because the most famous one we have right now is the girl that was in Obsession is playing Rogue,
Mhm.
and I'm very happy for her. Now I was telling this to Anthony, Aaron's gonna be like, why is she blah 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 blah? It's like, let's get this girl a chance. Like I trust Marvel when it comes to Marvel picking their cast. They did a good job. That was DC. I don't know, but like Marvel, they did a good job with picking their cast. So I want to see everyone just do a good job, which I believe they will. Even actually, they play for Storm. I don't know who she is, but I'm sure she'll do a good job as well. But Aaron's gonna say the dumb shit to get their clicks, to get their views. It is what it is at this point. But like, I'm excited to see her be Rogue. Even though I didn't see Obsession, I don't know if I'm ever gonna see that. Maybe I will see in the future. Who knows? Because I'm a wuss when it comes to horror movies. But I'm happy for her though because she's in an indie film, become one of the best grossing films of all time in 2026, and now
Yeah.
here she is, being in the MCU. Like
I
that's just amazing for her.
I'm optimistic for the lineup because I haven't seen Obsession yet either. So maybe we'll have to go together. But
No, I'm good on that. I'm not seeing that.
I have seen like a few other things she's in, and her range is pretty decent. And then speaking to the Storm actress, and then I'll release the reins. Another reason that I am optimistic is because she, if I'm not mistaken, what I read, she does come from a Broadway, theater kid background. And I don't know if you know about the original voice of Storm, but the reason she was so majestic and powerful and like in your face was because the voice actress was originally from theater. She did serious roles and everything like that. So she had that commanding presence. And when she was approached, initially she had turned it down. And then they appealed to her sense of like regalness. Don't just think of her as a superpower or a superhero during this time. They're like, think of her as a queen. Think of her as someone worshipped as a goddess who commands with simply her presence before she even speaks. And that's how she signed on to the role, which is why you get things like Arctic winds blast away my enemy and all the aspects of it all. It makes sense. So I believe that the newer or the next generation Storm being a words. Sorry, it's getting late. Theater kid makes sense based off the voice alone that everybody loves. And so, like, obviously in comics and games and different things, people have emulated that voice. But I guarantee you 9.5 times out of 10, when everybody closes their eyes and thinks of the character Storm and thinks of when they talk, no shade towards Halle Berry, she did the best she could. They did her dirty. That's a whole nother conversation. But the original actress voice comes to your mind. I know it comes to mind. I don't know about everyone else, but I would almost guarantee it comes to everybody else's mind.
Yeah, I'm generally optimistic. I have not really been, although I can have nostalgia for, I was never really a fan of any of the live action adaptations of X-Men. I feel like none of them really captured X-Men in the way that I think it should have been portrayed. Though there were like elements of it that I can appreciate or have like nostalgia for, and like the original X-Men movies, they were like, it was, I remember at the time just being like, whoa, like it's like an X-Men movie, like they're actually making it. Like now there's so many comic book movies, but back then it was so like rare, and like sort of frowned upon. And in some ways I think that ended up being to the detriment of the movies because they were so afraid to be comic book movies, and now like it's more embraced. So I'm excited to see X-Men movies being made as part of the MCU at a time when people are more accepting of like comic book movies and like they want to see it as a comic book movie as opposed to something else. And I like the cast. I think everybody who's cast I'm optimistic about. The actress who playing Rogue from Obsession, she's like phenomenal, and definitely see it as a good. It's hard to watch, but I think, and it is true that the actress playing Storm, she has a Broadway background. A few of them actually have like theater backgrounds, which is really interesting. And then of course Adam Driver as Mr. Sinister.
That surprised me.
Yeah, I think that'll be really good. So I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful for like an adaptation of X-Men that I like this live action that does it justice.
And it's a young cast, so they're planning on like them being around for a little while. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be interesting to see them grow into those characters. And I like the people that they've chosen so far. I'm really curious because besides I think Jean Grey, a lot of the other ones that they've chosen, and the one from Obsession, or in the one playing Mr. Sinister, it's like they're getting a nuance of like actors to play these roles. So like you don't really know much about them, and I think that they're choosing pretty wisely because like even like when you see some of the photos, you're like, oh, I could see them embracing that role. I could see even the person they chose for Cyclops. So I'm really anxious to see how they map this out. I think they did a good job. I can't give it away because because
if you're hinting at what I think you're thinking with Jean being in Spider-Man, you can. I do know that part.
Okay.
Huh?
That's the Jean.
I know what you're talking about.
Well, I mean, but the way that they show it, it makes you really anxious to see how they are going to roll out the new X-Men for the MCU, because, and I'll go and Lily, I was a person that I did not like the original X-Men movies that came out because I was like, what is this? Like, if you're going to make a movie on the X-Men or any characters that are based from the comics, make them look like the comic. Like what are we doing, right? And it was like it took for Deadpool to come out and show how much money that movie made for them to say, oh, you know what? Maybe we should have these characters look like the original characters. And then you go back to you see Deadpool 2, and then you have the scene with Juggernaut, and Juggernaut looks like Juggernaut from the comics, and you're like,
that's possible all this time.
Even though it was some rough CGI, it was still like,
I don't care.
No, I don't care. I don't care either. No, I don't care either. I love that.
That scene was epic when they revealed that was Juggernaut, and he looked just like how he looked in the comic books.
Yeah.
So it's just so I'm like very anxious to see how they roll them out. And I said one of the biggest characters that I'm nervous about is Rogue and Gambit. I was like, they have to be, they have to be exceptional, because I feel like those are those characters that just had those iconic, like whether it was Rogue and her accent and her strength, right? And then you have Gambit with his swagger and his, because I'll be honest, like I like that they're showing the Gambit right now with Shannon Tatum, and the way that his action sequences are. I'm like, that's Gambit, like. So I'm curious to see how whoever they choose for this new Gambit that they're going to choose, and how they intertwine that.
Yeah, I'm going to interject and I'll let Knuckles wrap us up. It's very much like Anthony and Lily said, some things don't age well. And initially, like, me, when I was a child, I'm like, ooh, powers, lightning, speed, metal bending. Like, in theory, the characters that I like, and again, I'm probably going to say it about 5 more times, I'm a huge Resident Evil fan. So coming from the games and looking at the movies, I'm like slightly confused, but I'm like, okay, we're still getting ish. We're getting the watered down Great Value brand version of Resident Evil. And then looking back now, especially when it got to that point, I'm like, we did not need these movies of, if you know Resident Evil, giving her powers all of a sudden, then taking the powers away, then giving them back when she's a character that didn't even belong. I've seen movies or adaptations like The Walking Dead or not Interview with a Vampire, but a few other ones for lack of time, where they introduced a character or someone that was supposed to be a one-off because they were so successful, expanded. I feel like Resident Evil fell by the wayside because the lead actress, as much as I love her, was married to the director. And I feel like with that, we just got more and more away from the game, so much so to the point where it was even just, it was in the name. That was the only commonality. And again, very much like X-Men, we could talk on characters that span multiple games that should have had more of an impactful role, and to jam them all in one movie and then all of a sudden not hear about them ever again. So going back to X-Men, I'm like, it's going to be interesting to see how close of an adaptation we do. Obviously, you're limited in live action because you get away with so much more animation-wise, but I am hopeful and optimistic for these new characters that new actors and actresses, to play the characters that we know and love and, feel for in our hearts.
Hey, Lily, sounds like you're about to say something, Lily, or?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I was just gonna make like a point because you were talking about Rogue, and just say like how, like, thinking about the original live action and like no shade to Anna Paquin because I think she's a good actress, but like that she just wasn't like Rogue, why, like, what, I don't understand, like, why
they humanized her more.
Like, why take such an iconic character like Rogue and like do that? I don't know. Like Storm wasn't really Storm, and like it just.
I feel like they made Rogue
wasn't right.
Like how they made Jubilee the kid and the new kid on the block in the animated one. I feel like they did that with Rogue, but like Knuckles said, they humanized her too much, where it's just like none of her person. Yeah, she has her power, but it was none of her personality or oozed through or anything like that. But Knuckles, you're about to say something.
I mean, no, like you look at the animated show Wolverine and the X-Men, it wasn't a Rogue that can fly around. It was still Rogue, but like in a certain accent, but like she didn't have like the strength, or it could have been something like that. Yeah. Yeah, no, like you said, looking at as a kid, oh, it's great to see. As an adult now, I'm like, ugh, this did not age well. Even as a kid, I'm like, where's Wolverine's mask? I don't see his mask. I don't see his mask right there. What are we doing? Like, what?
I love Hugh Jackman, but I feel like he's like too charismatic for Wolverine. So it's just like sometimes I'm like Wolverine was a little bit more gruff.
Yeah.
But it's okay. I like nostalgia for it,
But funny though, we can all agree on that. But Spider-Man was done well early 2000s. But X-Men, it's like
that was very comic booky. I have the first two and the third.
Yeah, I never heard the third one. Never heard that
and
one.
And popularity-wise, for me, X-Men over Spider-Man any day.
Yeah, you can see I'm more of an X-Men fan, so hopefully this movie can do such a good job with X-Men, especially in this post Infinity War side, because I understand MCU movies have not been the greatest as of right now. It's been on a roller coaster ride, but hopefully, this can be the spark that Marvel needs, because X-Men is such a huge important factor in the what was I
No, go ahead. No,
because X-Men is such a huge fact is a huge important factor in the Marvel universe. So I'm hoping, cross my fingers.
yeah, and Doomsday coming out in December. I'm beyond excited for, because man, the impact that I feel like that Doom, like Doctor Doom, is gonna have, and just open up people's eyes to like how powerful he is. Like, because they gave us Thanos, which they did a phenomenal job with, but man, like the recent trailer that's come out, I'm so
Did you
excited.
do this? Did you do this?
I'm so excited for this, because like, and then it's gonna get us involved with the X-Men, and they're gonna reveal a little bit more of that in there. So I think that's gonna be awesome. That's
We
gonna
gotta
set it all off.
cross our fingers. But
Yes.
guys, this was very, very fun. Like I said, I'm sorry that we did this on Sunday, but it's the best I could do this right now. But this was a lot of fun. Listen, we all agree that this season was decent, but it could have been better. Like it just paced it, number of episodes. You know what I'm saying? We still love X-Men. We'll still watch it, but it's like we want to see it do better. And I'm gonna look. I'm still season 3. I'm gonna still see the rest of any Marvel projects. I'm looking forward to hopefully we'll do another X-Men meetup and NYC. I know you can't reveal too much.
We're working on. It will hopefully be the details will hopefully be resolved soon. But very excited for the X-Men meetup. I know a lot of people look forward to it, including myself every year. So
yes, no, like I said, this was a lot of fun. And I'm supposed to do more of this. I've been more consistent with this podcast because I said I would do it every once in a while, but now I'm doing like every couple of weeks when there's a new topic going on, or is it like a anime, movie, gaming. Definitely do this podcast more often. But also, guys, when we leave, there's gonna be a little like local recording that I need you to record in order for me to like upload some of these clips. And Lily, I'm actually gonna send you a link to this to be a collaborator on this video, because I couldn't do it prior. I had to do it like after when the video was done with. So when I end the stream, guys, just don't leave yet. I'll let you know like what's going on and everything right there. But folks, thank y'all so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. If you guys want to hear in the chat, just in the not chat in the video, just give us a like. It really helps with the channel out a lot. Clips will be going on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. So be sure give everybody a like. I have Lily's Instagram and her YouTube channel in the description box below. So please give her a follow. We love all things superhero stuff, because she has a grudge of her cosplays. She did Supergirl. She's Jean Grey. She had Polaris right there. You want to do any Marvel, any like DC or Marvel character or superhero character, she's done it. So yeah, give her a follow right there. Appreciate y'all. But yeah, guys, this was a lot of fun, everybody. I know it's a Sunday night, but everybody, you have work tomorrow. Go to work tomorrow. Don't be late. So, but y'all were here to stay up watching us. We appreciate that, guys. But anyway, folks, you have a good night. Y'all be safe. Take care, guys. Just don't leave yet. I'll end the stream, but don't leave the room yet. Just
got you. I would say bye to your fans.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you,
guys.
And Knuckles for bringing us all together. Of course.
Yes, I like bringing people together. That's what I like to do right there. So everybody have a good night. You guys be safe. Take care.